Hello there and good morning. It is 7 a.m. and on today's breakfast programme, a new inquiry into maternity services at one NHS Trust.
Why we're about to see a major overhaul in the education system. Plus, the unusual challenge to one zoo boss who's being criticised for keeping penguins in a basement.
It's Monday, the 20th of October. We'll hear from the grieving families who welcome an independent investigation into maternity and neonatal services at an NHS Trust. President Trump insists his peace plan is holding as the Israeli military says it will continue with the Gaza ceasefire. And an international effort underway to apprehend the gang which stole 8 priceless artefacts from the Louvre in a daring daytime heist yesterday. Well, thank you for being with us on the breakfast programme. Grieving families have welcomed the launch of an independent investigation into maternity services at an NHS Trust. The parents of babies at Leeds teaching hospitals say they felt gaslit, dismissed and blamed for what went wrong there. Our North of England correspondent Katerina Vitozzi has our top story.
They are parents who say warnings were missed, voices ignored, and as a result, the lives of their children lost.
This shouldn't have happened. Well, they tell us it shouldn't have happened, but there's nothing about what's being done to make sure it doesn't happen again.
All these families used Leeds Teaching Hospital's maternity services. Their babies were stillborn or died shortly after birth. Allergy was left in a coma. Internal reviews found different care may have meant their children could still be alive. For Fiona and Dan, a coroner ruled their little girl, Aliona, died as a result of neglect from medical staff.
After our daughter died, we were told that they'd never seen anything like it before, and we believed it initially. We believed that we were the first people, the only people that this had ever happened to. And in the depths of our despair and grief, we needed to find other people that understood us, that were the same as us.
Now, after years of campaigning, bereaved families in Leeds, of which dozens have been identified, have finally got what they've been demanding, a fully independent inquiry into Leeds' maternity services.
It's been a long time coming. We have, as a group of families, spent years trying to essentially expose what the problems have been at Leeds that we've known have existed all along.
We shouldn't, as bereaved, grieving parents, had to do this for so many years, and he's now taking that responsibility, which is quite a relief to know that, you know, we don't have to keep fighting.
The Health Secretary's announcement of the independent investigation into the maternity services here comes not only after that relentless campaigning by bereaved families, but also after a series of damning reports with inspectors finding that the care here left pregnant people and babies at significant risk. And today, the head of the trust said sorry.
I want to start by offering the families an unreserved apology, not only for their experience, but also for the fight that they've had in raising these concerns. And I want to assure them of our commitment to engage with the independent inquiry openly, honestly and transparently.
Leeds now joins a growing list. Morecambe Bay, Shrewsbury, East Kent and the ongoing Nottingham inquiry, all uncovering shocking failures in maternity care across England. Katerina Vitozzi, Sky News, Leeds.
Well, to the US now, and President Trump has said the ceasefire in Gaza is still in place. The truce faced its first test over the weekend in an attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers, followed by a number of airstrikes that left 36 Palestinians dead. Well, Trump was speaking while travelling on Air Force One.
We're going to have to see what's happening. We want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas. And as you know, they've been quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in that. You know, some rebels within. But either way, it's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Well, Israel says it's begun renewed enforcement of the ceasefire after it carried out those strikes. Both sides, Israel and Hamas, have accused the other of breaching the US brokered deal. Sally Lockwood has more now from Jerusalem.
The ceasefire is still in place on paper, but the skyline over Khan Yunis tells a different story. As do the ambulances arriving at Al-Aqsa Hospital. These casualties are said to have been hit in a drone strike at a coffee shop in central Gaza. People were there to use the internet. At least 5 of them are now reportedly killed and many more injured. This strike hit an area the Israeli military agreed to vacate under the ceasefire conditions. And Israel's confirmed it's now struck dozens of Hamas targets throughout the Gaza Strip.
Terrorists fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards our troops operating in the area of Rafah to dismantle terrorist infrastructure, all in accordance with the ceasefire agreement. Now, in response, the IDF began striking in the area to eliminate the threat.
Israel's since confirmed 2 IDF soldiers have been killed and 3 more injured. And these strikes, it seems, is retaliation. The IDF releasing footage of armed gunmen they say are approaching their troops in northern Gaza before they're hit by Israeli fire. When the ceasefire began 10 days ago, the Israeli military had withdrawn to a so-called yellow line within Gaza. Violations of this line are proving one of the most contentious and dangerous elements of the current arrangement. And Doctors Without Borders say the number of patients they're treating hasn't changed since the truce began.
We have an official capacity of 110 beds, and we have been consistently close to 170 patients for the last few weeks.
This so-called yellow line, Caroline, at the moment, it's a line on a military map. It's not clearly marked on the ground. How dangerous is this proving?
At the emergency room of Al-Aqsa Hospital that we support, there our doctors are telling me that they have kept receiving patients who indeed approach that line too closely. On top of that as well, the other injuries that we continue seeing are people returning to their homes, including children picking up items that they do not know what it is that turn out to be an exploded ordnance and that explode in their hands as they touch them.
The children of Gaza continue to pay the price, caught between 2 sides still trading fire. Watching here as the digging for deceased hostages continues. Israel has warned more strikes could follow in a ceasefire that's growing more fragile by the hour. Sally Lockwood, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Now the manhunt continues for a gang who carried out an audacious heist on one of the world's most famous museums. It's an incredible story. 8 priceless objects were taken from the Louvre Museum in Paris in the space of about 4 minutes in a daring daylight raid. Siobhan Robbins has the story.
Brazen and in broad daylight, the thief in a hood and high-vis, part of a team carrying out an audacious heist at the Louvre. The robber is breaking into cabinets containing priceless jewels in video broadcast by our partners, BFM TV. In a matter of minutes, treasures worth an incalculable amount had been swiped from one of the most famous museums in the world as confused visitors were ushered out by frantic security.
Then we walked out of the room of the Mona Lisa. We went to the left in the direction of the French crown jewels. And there were security people, and they shouted to us, you have to move this place. You have to be quick, fast, run.
This is how the thieves got in. Shortly after the museum opened, they used a motorised ladder to get to the first floor, where they cut the glass and headed for the Apollo Gallery. A display housing treasures from Napoleon and French sovereigns. They smashed cabinets and gathered their swag before fleeing on scooters.
It must be said that these are professionals. Organised crime today targets art objects. And museums have obviously become targets because France, as you know, is a country with a rich heritage, a country with historical heritage objects of great value. And so these museums have also become targets for these criminals.
And this is what they made off with. 8 items, including a tiara, necklace and earrings belonging to a queen, and an empress's emerald earrings and necklace. But this tiara, owned by Empress Eugenie, was found dropped outside.
I think it's the theft of the decade, you know, targeting the Louvre, the world's most famous museum, and stealing the crown jewels from Napoleon. It's like the movies, you know. We have seen similar heists, but targeting the Louvre is next level. And it's a big scandal now in France, of course, losing the crown jewels. It's a big thing.
The French president has called the raid an attack on our heritage as forensic teams worked to track down the masterminds.
You have to see it to believe it. A heist straight out of a Hollywood script on this busy tourist street. Just how did they get away with it?
A European manhunt is underway, but French authorities know time is against them. The gang could be trying to cross the border or melting down their loot as we speak. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News, Paris.
Okay, going to take you through some of the day's other stories now, and 2 people have died. This is after a cargo plane skidded off a runway in Hong Kong and fell into the sea. Authorities said the Boeing 747 arrived from Dubai, crashed through the airport fencing as it landed. 4 crew members were rescued. A group of bereaved families has written to the Prime Minister calling for an inquiry into websites that promote suicide. They say there's been multiple missed opportunities to shut down online forums that encourage people to take their own lives. And there's been an urgent call for more people in England to adopt. Agencies say there's been a 12% drop in the number of people coming forward, with thousands of children now waiting for families. They say the cost of living crisis remains a major barrier for many potential adopters.
Now, the Metropolitan Police say that they're looking into claims made about Prince Andrew. It has been reported that he asked his bodyguard, who worked for the force, to dig up information about his sexual assault accuser, Virginia Giuffre.
Well, Prince Andrew surrendered his titles and honours following a series of revelations he says are distracting from the work of the royal family, but has strongly denied any wrongdoing. Thomas Moore reports.
The cosy relationship between Prince Andrew and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is under close scrutiny. New documents leaked from the US Congress to the Mail on Sunday make a series of blistering allegations. According to the paper, the so-called Epstein files show the men swapped emails on how they could blacken the name of Virginia Giuffre, the young woman who had accused the prince of having sex with her, aged 17. It claims he obtained confidential data, including her social security number, which he passed on to his taxpayer-funded police protection officer to investigate her. And in other documents, the then Duchess of York allegedly asked Epstein to lend her up to $100,000 while he was under house arrest for child prostitution charges. Prince Andrew has consistently and vigorously denied allegations, but a biographer of the prince says the documents are damning.
To use the police to spy on other people, it's abuse of data protection and all sorts of rules. And, you know, again, it's a sense of entitlement that because he might be able to do it, he did it. You know, it's, again, a sign of a powerful person trying to subvert someone who might actually cause him embarrassment.
The swirling allegations against the prince threaten to overshadow the king's historic visit to the Vatican this week to pray with the Pope, a symbolic reconciliation between the Catholic Church and the Church of England. Virginia Giuffre's family has demanded that Andrew is stripped of his title as a prince, though as Queen Elizabeth's son, that is his legal right.
It was, at the time, I suppose, the view of the king that his brother, who was born to Elizabeth II, was born with the style of the Prince Andrew. And I think that as the first child born to Elizabeth II while she was queen, that style was quite special to the late Queen, and perhaps the King for the moment thinks that that can be left alone. It's a matter really for the King, for the royal household, and perhaps with the guidance and advice of government, which I'm sure that they are taking.
Awkwardly for the royal family, Prince Andrew will continue to live in a mansion in Windsor, a lease from the Crown Estate, not the King, that lasts until 2078.
The hope will be is that he goes quietly. He's not invited to Sandringham at Christmas. And obviously Fergie has been behaving disastrously as well. So they're very much persona non grata. And I think it's a question of hoping that they will stop distracting the good work of the monarchy and go quietly.
Sky News asked the Prince's office to comment on the new allegations against him, but had no response. The Metropolitan Police said it is actively looking into reports that officers were asked to dig into Virginie Giuffre's background. Her posthumous memoirs are published on Tuesday, and it will be another nightmarish week for the royals. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Now, the film industry in China is being shaken up by a new form of online video content known as microdramas.
Yeah, really interesting this. The 2-minute fast-paced episodes are designed to be watched on the go on mobile phones, and every episode of your favourite drama is essentially at your fingertips.
Which is quite nice.
It's reinventing the soap opera as we know it, and it could become a cultural coup for China. Sky's Asia correspondent Helen Ansmith has this report.
An armed heist, a jewellery haul, and a film set with a difference. What they're shooting here is as sensational as it is melodramatic. A microdrama shot in vertical to target a TikTok generation. It might look a bit basic, but these productions are booming. A Chinese cultural sensation. This is what they look like to the viewer. Mini episodes of about a minute, autoplay to suck you in. Fast-paced, low cost, and hundreds of millions of views. Ji Dingdong is a producer who used to work in traditional film, but he says this is the future, an innovation to match the age.
When you watch verticals, you can easily binge 5 or 6 episodes on the subway, right? And let's face it, you're barely halfway through a normal TV episode before you reach your stop. So with everyone's busy lives and work pressures, scrolling through verticals at a fast pace is actually pretty stress relieving.
These productions can be shot in less than a week, a highly lucrative format, and there is no doubt it is landing.
The numbers behind this industry are absolutely extraordinary. In just a couple of years, we're talking about revenues surpassing the entirety of the Chinese box office. And the government here has said that over 50% of all internet users in this vast country are consuming dramas like this. But with huge reach and huge revenue comes challenge and opportunity for a system where everything, including cultural products, are strictly controlled.
And there are hints of that here. This place was once a COVID quarantine facility, transformed with government approval. It now houses 200 different sets.
Oh, wow, a courtroom.
From a courthouse to the metro.
There we go, and it moves.
From an operating theatre to an aeroplane.
It's exactly the music that Air China uses.
Yes.
Right.
They made 500 productions last year. And from the private jet, the boss acknowledges the industry does have political value.
The early phase emphasised growth, with the government taking a relatively relaxed but not lax approach. Now, the focus has shifted towards premium production, cultural exports and telling compelling Chinese stories. This aligns with the nation's overarching strategic vision. That's the current landscape.
Indeed, critics say they are perfect propaganda. This year, a huge boom in patriotic war productions. A mass removal of films deemed inappropriate. And there is now heavy focus on exporting this format abroad.
You're still here?
Yeah. Oh man, and that's you.
And that's me. I'm playing the drunk friend who sort of ruins his chance, you know.
Getting in the way of the romance.
Getting in the way of the romance.
Max is an American actor living in Beijing. The demand for English language versions exploding.
So in the past 10 months, right after the Chinese New Year, there was definitely a huge uptick. A bunch of productions decided that they were going to shoot, they were going to produce one a week. Obviously, with money, with eyeballs, with attention comes a degree of power.
The question is how much soft power this industry generates and how exactly China could use it. It may not be the death of old school TV, but it is a remarkable Chinese success story and one just at the start of its life. Helen Ansmith, Sky News in Chuzhou, southeast China.
I'm pleased to say we're now joined by the Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson. Secretary of State, I won't ask you about your favourite Chinese drama, but I will ask you about a drama involving China that's engulfing politics here, and the sense of to what kind of threat China is to the UK. We're going to start revisiting that idea that China is a top-level threat to us?
I mean, what we've consistently said is that we do recognise the challenges and threats that are presented, but alongside that, we also see the opportunities. You know, China is a major trading nation, a major trading partner, and therefore there are opportunities that come here at home in terms of growth and jobs. But of course, there is that balance, and that's why our national security will always come first. But we'll take a long-term and strategic approach where it comes to China.
I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but is that balance right, in your opinion, that we are mindful of the opportunities to do business, but at the same time concerned about China spying on parliamentarians, concerned about this new embassy? You'll know there are calls for the designation to be completely changed and that embassy to definitely be scrapped, not to be allowed in the City of London. Is that something the government will do?
Well, this is a quasi-judicial process that's going on at the moment, so there's not much I can say about that particular case. But where it comes to the prosecution that didn't proceed, we were disappointed that that hasn't proceeded in terms of the prosecution. That was, of course, a matter for the Crown Prosecution Service. But we remain confident that it is the right approach to take to engage with China, to cooperate where we can, but absolutely to challenge where it's in our national interest.
There's definitely be questions that will continue, but we don't have time to go into all of that today, because I do want to talk to you about your announcement today, V-levels. What's a V-level?
So what I'm setting out today is our plans to transform post-16 education and skills to make sure that young people have got a really strong range of routes and options into great careers and training. At the moment, we've got A-levels, which are well understood, the academic route that many young people will study. T-levels that are a bit newer but are a really fantastic qualification, offering technical education with work placements. But alongside that, there are hundreds of other qualifications. The landscape can be confusing for employers and for young people. So sitting alongside T-levels and A-levels, we'll introduce V-levels, so smaller programmes of study that can be done in combination with A-levels that make sure that young people who want to consider vocational routes are able to do that alongside academic study. And this is about bringing the system together much more coherently, so it's clearer for young people that we tackle the problems we see at the moment around young people who are not in education, employment or training. But also, as the Prime Minister recently set out, we want to move towards 2/3 of young people being in higher level technical, vocational or academic routes alongside great apprenticeship opportunities. And today we set the direction for how we deliver that, including through the new qualification of V-levels.
I mean, getting more young people qualified is obviously a noble aim, but I do wonder about this extra qualification that you're going to give children. I mean, you say that it's going to sit alongside T-levels and A-levels. What's it replacing?
It will replace the 900 or so other qualifications that sit in that space.
Right.
So that there are a range of options that are there.
BTECs are gone now, are they?
Well, we're in the process of transition around BTECs anyway. V-levels will become the new programme of study for young people who want to study a technical or vocational route alongside A-levels. But T-levels, I should just stress, are the equivalent of 3 A-levels. So V-levels is a new qualification that will complement what we've got, and it will give clearer routes through for employers and for young people. But we're going to consult on the shape of all of that in the months to come.
I recognise you're trying to explain it to you, because it does feel a bit confusing, and I wonder how a 16 to 18-year-old might feel about making these kinds of choices.
Sure. I mean, it's confusing at the moment. And that's what we're trying to simplify it and make the system more coherent overall, so that young people, when they reach 16, are clear about what the options are. But what we're also doing today through the white paper I'll be setting out is making sure that where young people haven't got English or maths, we give them the support that they need to continue to study English or maths. But alongside that, we know that at the age of 16, a lot of young people drop out of education, employment or training altogether. And this will allow for routes for young people to be guaranteed a placement at a provider. We're going to look at how we trial this. To make sure that young people don't slip through the cracks. A lot do at the moment. If they drop off at 16, it's harder to get them back.
At a provider, so an FE college, I'll definitely have a place. A V stands for what? Vocational?
Vocational.
Just making sure. So, look, are these going to be linked to jobs, though? Because that is the main concern, isn't it? I'm not sure what you studied at FE college, if you went to FE college or if you went to sixth form. But I guess the route from there was for you to go to move through and potentially to find the job where you find yourself now. Many young people now will be concerned that they'll spend a lot of time in education and still won't find a job. So you need to link this to some kind of work at the end of it.
Absolutely, and through the consultation we'll be launching, that's how we'll make sure that these new V-levels are linked to
ongoing career opportunities or further study. What T-levels offer, however, and they're a newer qualification, the equivalent of 3 A-levels.
Well, the T-levels, the Tories brought those in, didn't they?
They did, and we're expanding them.
You happy with them? They're good?
Yeah, I think
good policy?
I think they're a great addition to the landscape for young
people. Nice to hear that for once.
You know, there were some issues with how that was implemented, but they're a great addition. We're going to expand them further. But what T-levels also provide is that clear route into a career where you definitely know what you want to do. So quite specialist and has a work placement.
Yeah.
Some young people, when they're 16, are less clear about what it is they want to go on to do in terms of a career.
Yep.
The addition of V-levels will give young people the chance to combine study, including around vocational training and education, perhaps where they're less clear about exactly where they want to specialise.
It would be a 2-year course as an A-level would be. OK, we'll get more detail. And you're going to present the white paper to Parliament later, aren't you?
Absolutely, I'll be setting out the white paper later on.
We'll move on to some other issues for us for today. I want to talk to you about Prince Andrew. You'll know there are calls from people within your own party for his title of Prince to be stripped. This is something that the King would have to do, or it could take an act of Parliament. Is that something the government's minded to give time to?
I mean, he holds that title by virtue of being the son of a monarch. That is the position that we have. I think we agree and support the decision that the royal family and Prince Andrew have taken and the recent announcement that they've made. When you also hear the victims of Epstein and hear about the abuse that they endured, it's incredibly powerful to hear that. And I think first and foremost in our minds ought to be those who suffered at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein and making sure that we never forget about putting victims front and centre. But I think in the specific case here about what the royal family have done, we believe that's the right course of action. So
you won't be given parliamentary time to remove that title, despite the pressure that's coming, because there are going to be more revelations. You know that, Secretary of State.
I don't think the royal family would want to detract from wider parliamentary business that's currently ongoing.
Parliamentarians have a
Of course,
right to
of course, Parliament always has. There are always routes for parliamentarians to put forward debates, to find time for debates, if that's what backbench MPs would wish to do. But I think we've seen the right course of action in terms of what the royal family have done so far. But the title of Prince is a title that's held by virtue of being the son of a monarch.
It is, and my understanding is the monarch could remove it if he wanted to, but that would be a part of the process. But from what I'm taking from you, you're saying that the government wouldn't stop there being debate in Parliament if there was strength of feeling.
This is not something that the government... This is not a matter for government business, but of course it's always been the case in Parliament that individual members of Parliament are able to bring forward debates, discussion on any topic that they choose.
A couple more topics, please, if I may. Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are currently banned from going to their game against Aston Villa next month. First of all, on that decision, was that the right call to have been made?
We think it's not the right call that fans were denied the opportunity to attend a game because of fears about their safety. It's why no discussions are underway as to how that can be facilitated in a way that is safe for the fans, because nobody should be unable to attend a football match because of fear of violence or intimidation.
So it's fear for Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, their safety, not the local community?
My understanding is that having not been involved in this discussion, but my understanding is that the relevant authorities considered a range of factors and concluded that they didn't feel able to facilitate the away fans at that fixture. We think that is very difficult to justify and very difficult to accept, and that football fans shouldn't be unable to attend games for fear of what that might cause more widely. And therefore, we appreciate that there is, the relevant authorities are looking at this to see what more can be done to ensure that fans are able to attend safely.
Similar thing that's been said by the government since Thursday when this announcement was made. We're now many, many days on. What are you actually doing to try and overturn this decision? Do you think it's so wrong?
So the government will do what we can to make sure that the relevant authorities have got the resources they need to ensure...
So you can offer more police?
Well, these are discussions that are taking place. I can't provide a commentary on ongoing discussions, but we will provide what is necessary alongside the other relevant authorities in order to ensure that the fans can attend. I think it's unacceptable to have ended up in a position where away fans are unable to attend for the reasons that have been cited, and therefore we have a role to play. But other relevant authorities in the West Midlands will also be taking this into account.
Do you think it was a political decision made by some members of the council? There were 2 members of the council, a Liberal Democrat and a Labour councillor, who said that they wanted it match boycotted as a matter of conscience, not about safety, but just the fact that they just didn't want Tel Aviv fans in the city.
Well, I think as you demonstrate, this was these considerations were done, were taken into account by politicians from a range of parties, and therefore I'm not sure whether it is partisan in that way. But for whatever reason, and these discussions have taken place, a decision was reached. We think that decision is very, very difficult to justify, given that it involves fans not being able to attend an away fixture, and we're doing what we can to make sure that that can go ahead.
You say it's not partisan in a way. Does it speak down sectarian lines, though? Is it anti-Jewish to not have these fans coming?
Well, I think that is certainly the concern that many Jewish people in our country feel at the moment. And, of course, it's completely unacceptable that if fans were unable to attend a match because they're Jewish, that runs completely counter to everything that we stand for as a country.
OK. And last question. I know I've kept you, but I do want to ask you about the deputy leadership. You're going to get the results pretty soon. You seem very chipper. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago and you seemed very happy about it then. You said about Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, that you would be a critical friend. Can you be critical now? What would you say to him to try and turn things around? You know his poll ratings are really low.
Well, my message to party members throughout this contest has been that I want to unite our party and take the fight to reform. But I will always do what's necessary to put the Labour Party in the strongest possible position. But I'm afraid I won't be coming on programmes like this, airing my views in public. I'll be behind the scenes, as Angela Rayner did, getting things done, delivering on our Labour programme, but also making Labour members and Labour supporters proud of what this government is achieving. The way I think you best do that is in the meetings that will be happening at Cabinet, which I'd be at, and beyond, those meetings across government. It's in no one's interests, apart from our opponents, to come on programmes like yours and talk down our government, and I won't be doing that.
Secretary of State, thank you very much for being with us, and all the best in the Parliament for later. Thank you very much, Bridget Phillipson. All right. Well, up next, we will be hearing the views of the Lib Dems as we speak to their spokesperson for education, Munira Wilson.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Hello there and welcome back. Coming up shortly, we're going to speak to the Lib Dems, to the form of Munira Wilson, their education spokesperson. But first, let me take you through our top stories. An investigation into maternity services at an NHS Trust in Leeds has been welcomed by bereaved families. The government launched the inquiry into Leeds teaching hospitals after parents reported being dismissed and blamed for what went wrong there. The search continues for the gang of thieves who stole 8 pieces of priceless jewellery from the world-famous Louvre. Police say that the thieves broke in through an upstairs window and are believed to have fled on mopeds. President Trump insists the Gaza ceasefire is still in effect. The truce faced its first test this weekend after an attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers and then some Israeli airstrikes that killed at least 36 Palestinians. And the Tel Aviv derby between Hapoel and Maccabi was called off last night after what police described as riots. A number of people were injured in the disorder and 9 were arrested. The Metropolitan Police says it's looking into claims made about Prince Andrew. It's been reported he asked his bodyguard, who worked for the force, to dig up info on his sexual assault accuser, Virginia Giuffre. 2 people have been killed after a cargo plane skidded off the runway at Hong Kong International Airport. 4 crew on board the flight travelling from Dubai were rescued and taken to hospital. I'm pleased to say we can now speak to the Lib Dem education spokesperson, Munira Wilson. Munira Wilson, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So the government say that this new V level is going to give students more choice. What's your sense of it?
It's very clear that we do need to promote more vocational education in this country. And we know that for age of 16 upwards, the landscape of different qualifications is complicated. So it's welcome that the government is looking at ways to boost more vocational qualifications and to raise the status of them. I would just question why, the speed at which they will do this. I mean, we've yet to see any of the details, and hopefully later today we'll be hearing in Parliament more details. But I would urge caution on rushing headlong into defunding existing qualifications while they try to roll out new ones. We've seen with the introduction of T-levels, the uptake has been very low and slow, whilst both the previous Conservative government and even this Labour government to some extent have wanted to defund BTECs and other vocational qualifications, which are well recognised by employers and popular with students. So it's got to be done carefully, take students and employers and the public with them. But let's see what the details are later today.
Yeah, I mean, the Secretary of State just a moment ago, Munira Wilson, did say that there's going to be a sort of a merging towards getting rid of BTECs and bringing in these V levels and an expansion of T-levels. It's actually an interesting moment because we finally saw this government say essentially that something that the previous government had done was pretty good. There were problems, Bridget Phillipson told me, but they were worth expanding those T-levels.
I mean, the T-levels are a good and really strong qualification for young people who have a strong interest in vocational and technical routes in life. However, the problem is that as I said before, the uptake has been really low. And when I've gone out and about, not just in my own constituency, but in other parts of the country and spoken to colleges who are trying to offer T-levels, one of the big problems they've had is they've not had enough companies wanting to work with them to offer the huge amount of work experience and sort of contact time with companies that is needed as part of T-levels. So there's a lot more work got to be done to improve the uptake of T-levels. They're well behind what the previous government had predicted. But also, sadly, T-levels are still out of the reach of many young people. So having, whether it's the current BTEC and other similar qualifications, or this new V level coming forward is a really important alternative for those young people who can't access either A levels or T levels. But until we see the details around how people are going to be consulted, how they're going to be rolled out, what the time frame is. It's really hard to comment on the new qualifications.
Yeah, well, the white paper's to be presented later, isn't it? I'm sure you guys will be in Parliament putting the questions to the Secretary of State when she stands behind the dispatch box. Let me move you on to a couple of other topics, Munira Wilson, if I can. And I want to talk to you about Prince Andrew. You'll know there are calls for the title Prince, his style of Prince, to be taken away by the King or by an Act of Parliament. Is that something the Liberal Democrats would support?
When it comes to matters of the royal family, clearly it's a matter for the King and the royal family. You know, I do think what we've seen in the last few days with regards to royal titles, in the context of what's happened, what's been revealed, is a step in the right direction. But ultimately, these things are for the royal family, not for politicians.
So it's not something you would want to discuss in Parliament, because you'll know that there are calls for it to be discussed and for perhaps an Act of Parliament to be used to take away that styling of Prince.
As I understand it, if that title were to be taken away, it can only be done through legislation, and therefore, if that is something that the King and the royal family ask for, then then I think Parliament should respond to that. And at that point, of course, Parliament would need to get involved, because it's a legal process that requires a change in legislation. But ultimately, the decision on whether he keeps the title or not, I think, is really for the King.
What have you made of the revelations this weekend, last weekend, and I guess you've got a sense of what we're going to find out in the next few days as well when that book is published?
Obviously, it's deeply, deeply shocking, and in the context of the wider context of violence against women and girls that we hear about every single day. Sadly, Virginia Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein are not, isolated cases, and unfortunately, there's women up and down this country and around the world who are suffering at the hands of predatory and dangerous and often powerful men every single day. And so, obviously, whilst it's a really shocking story in and of itself, I hope it helps us all to refocus our minds and efforts on making sure that we're tackling violence against women and girls and calling it out wherever we see it.
OK. Final topic then on the decision to ban fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv going to Villa next month for their game. Do the Lib Dems support that ban to keep Maccabi Tel Aviv fans away from the game?
Well, Lib Davey was very clear when the decision first came out that we shouldn't be, blaming the victims of anti-Semitism by banning them from this country. Clearly, excuse me. Clearly, I was concerned to see the footage from Israel from the match that was abandoned yesterday. However, I think in the context of what's gone on in this country in recent weeks, I think it was right for leaders of all political parties to say that the decision to ban Tel Aviv from coming to play against Aston Villa was the wrong one. And at the moment, as things stand, we stand by that position.
Are you clear who's being protected by this decision? Is it Maccabi Tel Aviv fans or is it the local community?
Well, look, I think you need to ask West Midlands Police, because clearly it's an operational decision. But I think, as I said, in the context of what we've seen in this country in recent weeks following the Manchester attacks, and the need to tackle deep-rooted anti-Semitism that we see everywhere in our society, I think it was. It was wrong to say that the Tel Aviv fans couldn't come over. But I understand that clearly there will be concerns in the context of what happened yesterday in Israel.
OK. Munira Wilson, a spokesperson for the Liberal Democrats on education. Thanks so much for your time, Munira. Thanks very much for being with us, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Now,
yes,
a protest has broken out, hasn't it? It's over the weekend it happened, and it's all to do with the treatment of 15 penguins kept in a basement at the Sea Life London Aquarium. The campaigners have warned that without natural light, fresh air or deep water to dive in, of course, the creatures are denied conditions needed to live healthy lives. Well, is that Chris Packham there? No, it's Del Vince, but it's something that TV presenter Chris Packham has been talking about. It's amazing that they're trying to keep penguins underground and in the dark. See what he had to say.
What we know is that if we have to keep animals in captivity, they need purpose-built facilities. You know, the intricacies of their lives, their behaviour, what they need in terms of, sort of positive reinforcement and enrichment, that always got to be catered for. I think that this building was always unsuitable for these birds, and they've got to be shifted out.
It's extraordinary to me that it's taken up to this point for us to realise that it was probably not the best place to be keeping penguins underground and in the dark.
Yeah, they were handed to the Sea Life Aquarium in 2011.
Right.
As a gift from Edinburgh Zoo.
OK, well, they were probably outside. Like they were at London Zoo. Anyway, the protest is ongoing and we'll see what happens with those penguins. All right, still to come this morning on the breakfast programme. We'll hear from the Conservatives on that plan by the government to bring in new vocational qualifications.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes. I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor.
The reality of life under Russian fire.
People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war.
Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment.
We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO. But should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans.
The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, let's speak now to the Conservative Party. We can hear from the Assistant Whip, Nick Timothy. Nick Timothy, thank you very much for being with us, and good morning to you. A few things I want to get through with you, if we can, this morning. We'll come and speak about your speech a little bit later on, but I want to speak to you about Prince Andrew to start with. We've seen these revelations over the weekend. You know, there are going to be more revelations coming this week as Virginia Giuffre's book is published. I've asked the other politicians today whether or not there should be time given over in Parliament, as some want, to talk about whether or not to strip the Prince styling from Prince Andrew. What do the Conservatives think about that?
Well, I think it's really important that when serious allegations are made, the first thing that we're clear about is that the police should be free to investigate any claims of criminality, regardless of who the allegations are about. That's the most important thing. It seems that the royal family have acted quite decisively this weekend, which I'm pleased to see. And if something is brought before Parliament to debate the titles, then obviously that is what we should do. But these are obviously incredibly serious allegations, and we need to set an example to anybody who has been the victim of this kind of behaviour anywhere, to show them that they can come forward and that their experiences will be treated seriously by those in authority.
Is that your feeling, that by not treating this seriously enough, maybe not going as far as some, certainly the family of Virginia Giuffre want it to go, somehow we are not respecting their truth, their victimhood, and respecting what happened to them?
Well, I don't want to go too far into the specifics with Prince Andrew, because I don't know what the truth of the matter actually is, and some of those things will need to be investigated. But I think, in general, it is the case that for too long society has not taken allegations of abuse, especially when they involve minors, as seriously as they should. And we've seen that in a whole host of ways. That's why we had the big independent inquiry into child sexual abuse several years back. And it's why we're now having to have an inquiry into the rape gangs as well. Because for whatever reason, maybe it's because some people feel that it's an awkward subject to discuss, we haven't taken these things as seriously as we should, but in future we need to be much better.
And of course, we must say Prince Andrew denies all the allegations that he faces. Well, you've moved us on then to our next topic. You're going to give a speech today talking about free speech. Government seems to be minded to change the definition around Islamophobia, talking about anti-Muslim hate. So I've read your speech and you point out some of the issues that seem similar to what your colleague was saying to me a couple of weeks ago, Robert Jenrick, about this sort of lack of integration. My question to you is, how is this argument, this sort of, the way that you are talking about these issues, how is that making communities more cohesive? Isn't it more divisive in the way that you are portraying it?
Well, you can watch my speech later and you'll find that I'll be very responsible with the way I talk about it. But the point is that we have a crisis of free speech in this country, and in particular as it relates to how we discuss religion, and in particular how we discuss Islam. Because we either have street protests with the threat of violence in response to things like movies that are released, or teachers teaching certain subjects such as blasphemy in school. But we also have political campaigns and legal campaigns to try to restrict what can and can't be said about religious ideas. Now, 2 people this year have been arrested and charged for desecrating the Quran and saying things that are offensive to Muslims in public as part of their protests. Now, I don't think that behaviour is especially polite or nice, but I also know that it isn't illegal. And prosecutors have used the Public Order Act 1986 inappropriately to prosecute these people for causing offence. Fortunately, in one of those cases, after Hamid Choskan was found guilty in his appeal, the judge sided with him and made very clear that we don't have blasphemy laws in this country. The government's proposals to produce an official definition of Islamophobia, even if they call it anti-Muslim hate, cannot allied the protection of people from harm, which is something that the law already does, with the protection of ideas from scrutiny, because that's incompatible with life in a free society and takes us to quite dangerous places.
Absolutely, and it's a well-reasoned argument. I'm still not hearing how this is going to bring communities together.
Well, you don't bring communities together by treating communities differently. I say that the answer to this kind of thing is that we have one law, one approach that applies to all religions and to people of all different faiths, and we stop patronising people by saying that some people are incapable of hearing arguments that they don't like to hear. And I think this is actually really important, because what we've seen in this country increasingly is that all kinds of public debate about Islam and Muslims are dominated by Islamists and not by normal, mainstream, perfectly moderate Muslim people who just, like the rest of us, want to get on with their lives, go out to work and raise their families. So actually the responsible thing to do is to take this head on, because the state has been far too passive for too long.
again, it's an argument that you will make, but are you reaching out to this descriptive group that you're saying that that you want to bring into the fold? Because as you will know, the argument against this kind of rhetoric is that it's just divisive, and it feels a little late in the day for the Conservative Party to start saying this when suddenly they're feeling the pressure from their right flank, from a Reform Party that's saying many of the things that you guys hadn't said before.
Well, look, you often hear this language, right? It's divisive, therefore you shouldn't say it. The truth is we are already divided. We're divided because Islamists and extremists want to dominate the way this country talks about and thinks about Islam and the Muslims who live here. And I think that's wrong. When I say the state has been too passive, we've let extremists decide where the line is between what's acceptable and what's not. We need to say, we will decide where the line is, and that everyone has to accept the basic pluralistic deal, which is that I respect your ability to lead your life as you choose, but you've got to respect mine too. If you're on the right side of that line, we'll back you to the hilt. And if you're on the wrong side of that line, we will come down on you like a ton of bricks.
Be very careful in your language, but you'll know that it will be heard that you are being very critical of the Muslim community right now with this idea, this sense of an othering of the Muslim community and maybe an undercurrent of danger from that community.
Not at all, and I don't really understand these terms like othering and things like that. I think
you
it's
don't.
Well, look, I think your question is. And I know it's not your view. You're asking a question on behalf of a particular perspective. But this is exactly what's wrong with how we talk about these issues. If you try to talk openly and freely about undoubted social problems that exist in this country, you are immediately accused of bad faith. That's not what's going on at all. My words will stand for themselves, but we have a crisis in free speech in this country, and we need to do something about it.
I'm sorry to rush you, because this is an important debate. We should have much more time to talk about it. Hopefully you and I will get to do that again very soon. All right, thank you very much for being with us. All right, let's take a look at the weather. Well, it's going to be unsettled for the rest of the month. I am sorry to report it is raining now, and it's going to rain again later. Stay with us. Your headlines next.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Hello then, good morning. It is 8 a.m. and on today's programme, President Trump insists the Gaza ceasefire deal is still in place.
And why we're about to see a major overhaul in the education system.
And we'll also be discussing the very latest on Prince Andrew at 5:30 with India McTaggart.
It is Monday, the 20th of October. President Trump has claimed his peace plan is holding as the Israeli military says it will continue with the Gaza ceasefire. We're going to hear from grieving families who have welcomed an independent investigation into maternity and neonatal services at an NHS Trust in Leeds. An international effort is underway to apprehend the gang which stole 8 priceless artefacts from the Louvre in a daring daytime heist yesterday. And the government says it agrees with the royal family's decision to remove Prince Andrew's titles. Good morning. President Trump has said that the ceasefire in Gaza is still in place. The truce faced its most serious test over the weekend in an attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers, followed by Israeli airstrikes that left 36 Palestinians dead. Well, overnight, the president was speaking on Air Force One.
We're going to have to see what's happening. We want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas. And as you know, they've been quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in that. Some rebels within. But either way, it's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is.
Well, Israel says it's begun renewed enforcement of the ceasefire. Both Israel and Hamas have accused the other of breaching the US brokered deal.
The ceasefire is still in place on paper, but the skyline over Khan Yunis tells a different story. As do the ambulances arriving at Al-Aqsa Hospital. These casualties are said to have been hit in a drone strike at a coffee shop in central Gaza. People were there to use the internet. At least 5 of them are now reportedly killed and many more injured. This strike hit an area the Israeli military agreed to vacate under the ceasefire conditions. And Israel's confirmed it's now struck dozens of Hamas targets throughout the Gaza Strip.
Terrorists fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards our troops operating in the area of Rafah to dismantle terrorist infrastructure, all in accordance with the ceasefire agreement. Now, in response, the IDF began striking in the area to eliminate the threat.
Israel's since confirmed 2 IDF soldiers have been killed and 3 more injured. And these strikes, it seems, is retaliation. The IDF releasing footage of armed gunmen they say are approaching their troops in northern Gaza before they're hit by Israeli fire. When the ceasefire began 10 days ago, the Israeli military had withdrawn to a so-called yellow line within Gaza. Violations of this line are proving one of the most contentious and dangerous elements of the current arrangement. And Doctors Without Borders say the number of patients they're treating hasn't changed since the truce began.
We have an official capacity of 110 beds, and we have been consistently close to 170 patients for the last few weeks.
Now, this so-called yellow line, Caroline, at the moment, it's a line on a military map. It's not clearly marked on the ground. How dangerous is this proving?
At the emergency room of Al-Aqsa Hospital that we support, there our doctors are telling me that they have kept receiving patients who indeed approach that line too closely. On top of that as well, the other injuries that we continue seeing are people returning to their homes, including children picking up items that they do not know what it is that turn out to be an exploded ordnance and that explode in their hands as they touch them.
The children of Gaza continue to pay the price, caught between 2 sides still trading fire. Watching here as the digging for deceased hostages continues. Israel has warned more strikes could follow in a ceasefire that's growing more fragile by the hour.
Right, well, let's bring Sally in, who is in Jerusalem for us. Morning to you, Sally. So, look, you finished your report by saying it's fragile by the hour. How is it currently? And what's the thought as to what will happen in the coming days? Will more aid come in?
Good morning, Kamali. The ceasefire is holding for now. Both sides say the ceasefire is still on and they remain committed to it. But if you look at the scenes that unfolded in Gaza yesterday, it really painted a very different picture. And for a time, it really felt like everything was about to fall apart. Now, Israel announced that aid was halted into Gaza yesterday following what unfolded. And Israeli media is reporting this morning that due to American pressure, aid will resume going into Gaza today. We'll wait to see if that happens. But certainly you can see from those comments by Donald Trump overnight that America is paying very close attention to what is happening here. And I've spoken to an American source in the last few moments who's very involved in the diplomatic efforts here in Israel. He's confirmed to me that the Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, will be arriving in Israel today, ahead of a visit, I'm told, by US Vice President J.D. Vance tomorrow. Now, I asked this source if this was in light of what unfolded yesterday, if this is a hastily arranged trip. And he said to me, yes, in light of what happened yesterday, this is why they are arriving. And I asked what the purpose of this mission is today. He said, well, essentially, the message to both sides will be, get your beep together. The ceasefire just took hold. Let's get towards the next phase. Otherwise, it's going to fizzle. Now, certainly a week on from Donald Trump's visit here to Israel to celebrate this ceasefire deal and the release of the living hostages, there's a very different tone today. We're expecting this high-level visit from American diplomats today and tomorrow, and certainly I think the focus will be just to hold this together and ensure it doesn't collapse and break out into full-scale fighting once again.
All right, Sally, for now in Jerusalem, thank you for that. Look, as Sally points out, that is the concern, that after the weekend of the violence, of the attacks on the IDF and then the airstrikes in return, that this could fall apart. And they're, I guess, all clinging to hope that they can hold it together.
Absolutely. We're going to move on now to a story closer to home, because grieving families have welcomed the launch of an independent investigation into maternity and neonatal services at an NHS Trust.
Yeah, the parents of babies at Leeds Teaching Hospital say they felt gaslit, dismissed and blamed for what went wrong with their children. Our North of England correspondent Katerina Vitozzi has this.
They are parents who say warnings were missed, voices ignored, and as a result, the lives of their children lost.
This shouldn't have happened. Well, they tell us it shouldn't have happened, but there's nothing about what's being done to make sure it doesn't happen again.
All these families used Leeds Teaching Hospital's maternity services. Their babies were stillborn or died shortly after birth. Amarjeet Mataru was left in a coma. Internal reviews found different care may have meant their children could still be alive. For Fiona and Dan, a coroner ruled their little girl, Aliona, died as a result of neglect from medical staff.
After our daughter died, we were told that they'd never seen anything like it before, and we believed it initially. We believed that we were the first people, the only people that this had ever happened to. And in the depths of our despair and grief, we needed to find other people that understood us, that were the same as us.
Now, after years of campaigning, bereaved families in Leeds, of which dozens have been identified, have finally got what they've been demanding: a fully independent inquiry into Leeds' maternity services.
It's been a long time coming. We have, as a group of families, spent years trying to essentially expose what the problems have been at Leeds that we've known have existed all along.
We shouldn't, as bereaved, grieving parents, had to do this for so many years, and he's now taking that responsibility, which is quite a relief to know that, you know, we don't have to keep fighting.
The Health Secretary's announcement of the independent investigation into the maternity services here comes not only after that relentless campaigning by bereaved families, but also after a series of damning reports, with inspectors finding that the care here left pregnant people and babies at significant risk. And today, the head of the trust said sorry.
I want to start by offering the families an unreserved apology, not only for their experience, but also for the fight that they've had in raising these concerns. And I want to assure them of our commitment to engage with the independent inquiry openly, honestly and transparently.
Leeds now joins a growing list. Morecambe Bay, Shrewsbury, East Kent and the ongoing Nottingham inquiry all uncovering shocking failures in maternity care across England. Katerina Vitozzi, Sky News, Leeds.
This is a story to keep an eye on. The manhunt continues for the gang who carried out an audacious heist on one of the world's most famous museums.
Yeah, it's covered in all the papers today. Yeah. So 8 priceless objects were taken from the Louvre Museum in Paris in the space of, we think, about 4 minutes in a daring daylight raid. Siobhan Robbins has your story.
Brazen and in broad daylight, the thief in a hood and high-vis, part of a team carrying out an audacious heist at the Louvre. The robber is breaking into cabinets containing priceless jewels in video broadcast by our partners, BFM TV. In a matter of minutes, treasures worth an incalculable amount had been swiped from one of the most famous museums in the world as confused visitors were ushered out by frantic security.
Then we walked out of the room of the Mona Lisa. We went to the left in the direction of the French crown jewels. And there were security people and they shouted to us, you have to move this place. You have to be quick, fast, run.
This is how the thieves got in. Shortly after the museum opened, they used a motorised ladder to get to the first floor, where they cut the glass and headed for the Apollo Gallery. A display housing treasures from Napoleon and French sovereigns. They smashed cabinets and gathered their swag before fleeing on scooters.
It must be said that these are professionals. Organised crime today targets art objects. And museums have obviously become targets because France, as you know, is a country with a rich heritage, a country with historical heritage objects of great value. And so these museums have also become targets for these criminals.
And this is what they made off with. 8 items, including a tiara, necklace and earrings belonging to a queen, and an empress's emerald earrings and necklace. But this tiara, owned by Empress Eugenie, was found dropped outside.
I think it's the theft of the decade, you know, targeting the Louvre, the world's most famous museum, and stealing the crown jewels from Napoleon. It's like the movies, you know. We have seen similar heists, but targeting the Louvre is next level. And it's a big scandal now in France, of course, losing the crown jewels. It's a big thing.
The French president has called the raid an attack on our heritage, as forensic teams worked to track down the masterminds.
You have to see it to believe it. A heist straight out of a Hollywood script on this busy tourist street. Just how did they get away with it?
A European manhunt is underway, but French authorities know time is against them. The gang could be trying to cross the border or melting down their loot as we speak.
I'm pleased to say Siobhan joins us now from outside the Louvre. Siobhan, great to have you with us and great reporting. I was on yesterday when the story was breaking. Just extraordinary. What's the latest in the investigation?
Morning, Kamali. Well, if you have a look behind me, you can see the Louvre is open again, but it's really mind-boggling to think it was around this time yesterday morning that gang would have been preparing to carry out the heist here on the Louvre. And we've already heard from ministers across France about the outrage that this could happen. The Justice Minister today saying on French TV that he says this is a damaging event for France's reputation because they have so many museums, so many expensive artefacts being housed here. You heard in my report the President saying that this is an attack on the national heritage. So the big question is, What happens now? We know this European-wide manhunt has been triggered, that they're watching the borders of France, trying to find out where this gang has gone. The last we've been told is that they got away on scooters or motorbikes heading towards the A6 motorway. And the prosecutor, speaking to French media, has said that they, at the moment, are working on two potentials as to who could have carried this out. Either it was a gang being run by an organised criminal group, or it was a gang stealing to order for a collector. Now, an art detective has also told us that time is really against the French authorities. They reckon that they've got around a week to find these jewels, because otherwise they'll have been passed on or melted down.
OK, Siobhan, for now, thank you for that. And of course, I'll have more from you and team as that investigation continues.
OK, I'm going to take you through some of the day's other headlines now. And 2 people have died after a cargo plane skidded off a runway in Hong Kong and fell into the sea. Authorities said the Boeing 747 arrived from Dubai, crashed through the airport fencing. As it landed, 4 crew members were rescued. Now, a group of bereaved families has written to the Prime Minister calling for an inquiry into websites that promote suicide. They say there's been multiple missed opportunities to shut down online forums that encourage people to take their own lives. And the government's announced a new set of qualifications for students aged 16 to 19. They'll be known as V-levels. They're due to replace the 900 vocational qualifications currently available to pupils and can also be sat alongside A-levels. The Education Secretary says they will be tied to rigorous and real-world job standards.
Now, the Metropolitan Police says it is looking into claims made about Prince Andrew. It's been reported that he had asked his bodyguard, who worked for the force, to dig up information about his sexual assault accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Now, Prince Andrew surrendered his titles and honours following a series of revelations that he says are distracting from the work of the royal family. Those revelations were about his ties to the convicted, now dead, paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Bridget Phillipson for the government told us this morning that it's not a matter for the government whether or not he should lose the styling of Prince.
I don't think the royal family would want to detract from wider parliamentary business that's currently
parliamentarians
ongoing.
have a
Of course,
right to do
Parliament always has. There are always routes for parliamentarians to put forward debates, to find time for debates, if that's what backbench MPs would wish to do. But I think we've seen the right course of action in terms of what the royal family have done so far. But the title of Prince is a title that's held by virtue of being the son of a monarch.
Our political correspondent Amanda Akas is here with more. Amanda, morning to you. So, look, what did you make of the way that Bridget Phillipson answered that question? She said that if there's a debate in Parliament, they'll just have to go along, but it's not the government position to have one.
Yes, I thought it was quite interesting. I thought she actually went a little bit further than we previously heard from the government when talking about this by describing the decision for Prince Andrew to give up those titles as being the right course of action and saying that the government supports the royal family in this decision. Yes, she didn't want to say the government's going to put forward legislation to strip him of his remaining titles, which is something that Virginia Giuffre's brother has called for, and indeed some MPs, the MP for York, Rachel Maskell, has been talking about it as well. I don't think you'd really expect the government to kind of proactively go and do that. But what I thought was really interesting there was that she kind of was almost suggesting to backbench MPs that was something that they might want to look at doing. Now, she wasn't explicitly saying that, but the fact that she sort of raised that, oh, well, they could come forward with that if they want to, I think was a kind of signal that they're not against that whole idea if it's something that's brought up in Parliament without it actually being government legislation. And interesting, some other ministers have been speaking about it this morning, sounding even more enthusiastic about the idea, saying it was absolutely right for the titles to be stripped. And there's also questions about the use of the kind of his house on the estate of Windsor Castle and all the arrangements, and clearly there's many more questions being asked about that. I mean, it is a kind of big topic, isn't it? Royal family, Parliament. I mean, there are actually rules that mean that MPs can't really ask direct questions about the monarch in Parliament. And one Labour MP, George Faulks, has actually written to the government asking for that to be reviewed as well, saying that MPs and Lords should be able to discuss the royal family. And I think it's interesting that we heard Bridget Phillipson, but also Nick Timothy from the Tories, also talking about the importance of demonstrating to the victims of sexual crimes that they are being taken seriously and they are being listened. Of course, Prince Andrew denies the allegations against him, but I think it was very clear that both of the politicians wanted to kind of get that on the record and get that out there. And I think the Tories said that they would be up for debating it if it came forward to the House, and the Liberal Democrats as well said, while it was a matter for the royal family, they're not exactly pushing back on the idea of it, if that's something that ends up happening later on, but they don't want to preempt what the royal family wants to do.
It does tell us how much we've moved on, because I don't think parliamentarians would have said something like that maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Thank you very much for that, Amanda. All right, let's return to the situation in Gaza, as Israel says it's begun renewed enforcement of its ceasefire agreement signed with the US and Hamas just hours after it carried out airstrikes that left at least 37 dead. Well, joining us now is the British Palestinian political activist Youssef El-Halul. Youssef, thank you so much for being with us. Good morning to you. Have you got a sense of what the situation is like in Gaza right now after that weekend of strikes?
We anticipated that this ceasefire is going to be fragile. I think Israel wants to copy the same experience in Lebanon, creating a status quo. It wants to have a free hand, a free will to attack Gaza at will. And what has happened yesterday is that Israel has defended a unit of Palestinians who are described as a collaborating unit. So those Hamas fighters found themselves facing Israeli occupation forces in Rafah. But in the last 12 days or so, Israel has violated the ceasefire numerous times and killed over 45 Palestinians. I think Israel has managed to kill tens of thousands of Palestinians during the last 2 years, but it has failed to achieve its political goals. That's why it didn't achieve an ultimate victory, and it wants to keep attacking the besieged territory until Hamas reaches the white flag and surrender. The U.S. administration must intervene to make sure that this ceasefire holds. We cannot afford to see more Palestinian civilians killed.
Now, Youssef, talk to us about the amount of aid that is getting in or not getting in at the moment. There were some talks a couple of days ago now for the Rafah crossing to be opened. That's not happening. I think it was meant to happen today. That is not happening, clearly, because of the situation there. What is the aid situation on the ground at the moment, as you understand it?
So the humanitarian situation is still bad as it is. There is a slight improvement. A number of trucks entered into the besieged territory via the Rafah border crossing. There is still needs for different kinds of items. The Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt is still closed most of the time. And there's a need to start the reconstruction of Gaza to allow building materials, to allow tents, caravans. Aid is in short supply because Israel keeps postponing the reopening of the Rafah border crossing. There is need for heavy machinery to remove the wreckage, the rubble. We're approaching winter now, and people are displaced, homeless on the wreckage, on the rubble. They're lacking a roof above their heads. There is so much desperation, frustration that for 2 years, the international community did not really pressure Israel to end this genocidal war. So the atmosphere is of, anger, frustration that, look, we have had enough. And I think it's important now that Israel realizes that it must stop dealing with Palestinians as collateral damage and as numbers.
Youssef, there are still some parts of the ceasefire agreement that haven't been fully realised, haven't there? I mean, it's not a stable situation, to put it mildly, in Gaza at the moment. There's been some fighting within rival factions, and part of the ceasefire agreement is for Hamas to give up its weapons entirely. I mean, is that likely to happen while it's so unstable within Gaza?
So since the announcement of the ceasefire, Hamas forces redeployed in the streets, and this angered Israel. So Israel intervened to protect those lawlessness groups who caused anarchy and many problems. They are looters. They are described by Hamas as thugs, as collaborators. Hamas wanted to impose law and order, which of course not acceptable by Israel, by the US administration. Also, many Palestinians, of course, they oppose this extrajudicial methods carried out by Hamas members in Gaza. But the situation might deteriorate at any moment because the main point in the Trump deal is that Hamas must disarm and they must leave the political arena. But for the time being, there is no international force in Gaza to oversee or to rule the Palestinian territory. So that's why Israel is pushing for the Qatari mediation, the Egyptian mediation, to send international forces in Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that international stabilisation force can't come quickly enough. It's reported that Egypt's expected to lead that force. That's according to some diplomatic sources. What is the sense on the ground in Gaza about the chances of that force coming in? I mean, I presume it will be welcomed by the people there if it's the right kind of force.
I think any international force is welcome as long as this force is going to maintain the stability and peace of mind. They don't mind if an Arab force comes to Gaza to rule the territory, even if it's the Palestinian Authority. But the main concern is that as long as Israel occupies 50% of Gaza or any percentage, this is going to pose a real danger because Israel can justify its resumption of attacks against Gaza by saying that some people crossed the yellow line, or it suspects a number of Hamas fighters. They are approaching its forces. So the second phase must be implemented as soon as possible, and Israeli occupation forces must withdraw their forces and redeploy back to the so-called security fence. People are desperate, really. They want to have their life back. They want to gather the shattered pieces of their lives. They have suffered tremendous hardships under the past 2 years of genocidal war. And I think Israel wants to keep dehumanizing Palestinians. It can come up with all sorts of justification to say that the Palestinian side did not commit themselves to the truce deal. But at the end of the day, this collective punishment must not go on forever. People in Gaza have been under blockade, under siege for the past almost 20 years. And Gaza has been blocked, isolated from the rest of the world. 2.5 million people, they have aspirations. They want to have a normal life without Israeli control. And I think people who are stuck outside Gaza, they want to go back. So Israel dictates who can enter or who can leave Gaza, even though the Rafah border crossing is an Egyptian-Palestinian border.
Yusuf, give us a thought about leadership as well. As part of this deal, there was meant to be some kind of international body that comes in. I mean, Tony Blair, as you know, was mentioned to be part of it. Donald Trump will be on that board as well. Not many mention of the names of the Palestinian leadership that will be on there. Describe for us how important that leadership is, and talk to us about the prisoners who are still held within Israeli jails, one in particular, Maran Barghouti, who was, my understanding, assaulted last week, and how important it would be for him to be released, for there to be strong leadership for the Palestinians.
Yes, of course. When we talk about independent technocrats, they are approved by the Palestinians that the Palestinian leadership must maintain control in Gaza, in addition to other international forces. So Marwan Barghouti, along other tens of thousands of Palestinians inmates who are languishing in Israeli bars, they also have the right to be free. The international community failed to talk about those Palestinian prisoners and political prisoners held in Israeli jails for so long.
Yusuf?
So this is the main issue, is that the world is blind. The innocence and suffering of Palestinians. Press ahead to release those political prisoners and allow Palestinians to rule themselves.
Absolutely. Look, Yusuf, we lost the line to you for a moment there, but your point was received and well made. Thank you very much for being with us this morning, Yusuf, and I'm sure we will speak again real soon. Thank you. All right, well, still to come this morning on the breakfast programme.
Yeah, coming up after a short break, police say they're looking into claims about Prince Andrew. We'll be discussing the latest developments next.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Hello there and welcome back to the Breakfast programme. Coming up, the Metropolitan Police say that forces looking into claims about Prince Andrew. We'll speak to the royal correspondent from The Telegraph, India McTaggart, in a short while. But first...
just a recap of our top stories for you this Monday. Donald Trump has insisted the Gaza ceasefire is still in effect. The truce faced its first major test this weekend, really, after an attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers and sparked a wave of airstrikes that killed at least 36 Palestinians. Also this morning, an investigation into maternity services at an NHS Trust in Leeds has been welcomed by bereaved families. The government has launched an investigation into Leeds teaching hospitals. This is after parents reported that they were dismissed and even blamed when things went wrong. And the manhunt continues for a gang of thieves who stole 8 priceless pieces of jewellery from the world-famous Louvre in Paris. Police say they broke in through a window and are believed to have fled on motorbikes. And the Met Police says it's looking into claims made about Prince Andrew. It's reported that he asked his bodyguard, who worked for the Metropolitan Police, to dig up information about his sexual assault accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Meanwhile, the government has said it agrees with the royals' family decision to remove Prince Andrew's titles.
Now, in Tel Aviv in Israel, a derby between Hapoel and Maccabi was cancelled prior to kick-off after violence which led to 9 people being arrested. A spokesperson for Israeli police said during the violence and disturbances inside the stadium, 13 civilians were injured by pyrotechnic devices, some of whom were evacuated for medical treatment. In addition, 3 police officers were injured by pyrotechnic devices thrown directly at them. These are very serious incidents that posed a real danger to the lives of police officers and civilians. Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Amelia Harper, who's having a look at this for us. Amelia, morning to you. So what more do we know about this?
Well, this was meant to be a football derby in Israel's Tel Aviv between 2 really rival teams, Maccabi Tel Aviv and also Hapoel Tel Aviv. But it had to be cancelled last night because of what Israeli police are calling disturbances and essentially rioting. And it was meant to happen in Bloomfield Stadium last night. This is a venue that's actually shared between both of the teams. But for this match, you had Hapoel as the home side. 9 people were actually arrested and 13 civilians and 3 police officers were actually injured by pyrotechnic devices. These are things like fireworks and flares. In some of the previous shots, we could see them there. And Israeli police have called them violent riots, but one of the teams involved has issued a statement. They don't really agree with this. They've got a different perspective on the policing approach. This is from Hapoel Tel Aviv Football Club. In a statement online, they have said police were preparing for war rather than a sporting event. The shocking events outside the stadium and the rash and scandalous decision not to hold the match only show that the Israeli police have taken control of the sport. It goes on and says most of the injuries from the event were caused by brutal police violence at the end of the game. The club's management condemns all manifestations of violence and will fight lawbreakers even if they're wearing uniforms. Now, Israeli police haven't responded to those comments, but this really comes just days after a little bit of controversy involving one of the side, involving Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, a little bit closer to home. So they were banned from attending November's Europa League game against Aston Villa in Birmingham. Organisers say due to safety concerns. Now, this was a decision taken by Birmingham's Safety Advisory Group. This is made up of local stakeholders, police, as well as event organisers. They have said there was a high risk of violence. This caused, as we've all heard, this huge political outcry, including from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, very much opposing the move. We had earlier on the programme Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. She actually said the decision to ban fans was very, very difficult to justify. We know that the Home Office has been in conversation with local police to look at what they can do to try to overturn this ban. And there is going to be a meeting next week with the Safety Advisory Group to discuss what to do. But we've got these pictures here in Israel. This Tel Aviv football derby has had to be cancelled due to some of this footage we're looking at now.
Absolutely right. Amelia, I do appreciate that update. Thank you for that. Well, as Amelia was mentioning, let's get a bit more now on that ban by West Midlands police on fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv from going to that game against Villa next month. The Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, told Trevor Phillips yesterday there can't be a situation where any area of the country is no-go for people of a particular religion. Here's our political correspondent, Tamara Cohen.
Days since football fans from Tel Aviv were banned from attending a match in Birmingham, the political row is still brewing.
Why this morning does the ban still stand?
Well, look, we are working with the relevant authorities on this issue. The best outcome we want to see is that this match goes ahead as normal with all of the fans there.
Is Aston now a no-go area for Jews?
No, and it can't be. And I'm very, very clear about that. And look, I believe we as a country pride ourselves on our diversity, but also our tolerance and our hatred of prejudice, frankly.
Villa fans in North London to watch their team play Tottenham Hotspur were talking about the decision to ban fans of the Israeli side from Villa Park, officially made on safety advice, but following campaigning by the pro-Gaza local MP, who cited strength of feeling about Israel.
I don't think politics belongs in football. I think it should just be a decision based on, obviously, the safety of our own fans, safety of everybody.
I think the Westminster police are scared about everything to do with that. Just let the game go ahead, let the away fans come, and let them enjoy the game.
Sport is sport, politics is politics, keep out of it, let them come. As long as they behave themselves, no problem at all.
It's quite a sad state of affairs when you've got the second city in Birmingham that can't peacefully hold a game of football because of how much division there is.
At a conference of Jewish and Muslim women looking to build bridges, a feeling that this is a wider debate about how to deal with tensions unleashed by October the 7th and the Gaza war.
This football match, to my mind, is not only about football, it's about the whole conflict playing out here. And to me, it does feel anti-Semitic. It does feel like Israel's being singled out here.
I don't think it has anything to do with football. It is to try to punish people who are perceived to be the enemy. What comes next? Could it be that Muslims aren't allowed to attend a football match because of the area that it's in? It's a slippery slope.
Discussions about the Villa match are ongoing, with West Midlands Police ordered by the Home Office to say what resources they'll need to keep the match safe. Either way, tensions are likely to be running high. Tamara Cohen, Sky News.
A little earlier, the Education Secretary told me nobody should be stopped from attending a match due to fear of violence or intimidation.
I can't provide a commentary on ongoing discussions, but we will provide what is necessary alongside the other relevant authorities in order to ensure that the fans can attend. I think it's unacceptable to have ended up in a position where away fans are unable to attend for the reasons that have been cited, and therefore we have a role to play. But other relevant authorities in the West Midlands will also be taking this into account.
That's Bridget Phillipson speaking to me earlier. Let's return to the story around Prince Andrew. And the Met say that it's looking into claims about him. It's been reported that he asked an officer to dig up personal information on the woman who accused him of sexual assault.
Yeah, it's important to say Prince Andrew denies any wrongdoing, but we are going to talk more about this story. We're joined in the studio by India McTaggart, entertainment and royal correspondent at The Telegraph. These are all claims that the royal family would prefer would die away. They're not at the moment. What's your take on what we've seen so far?
Well, it's exactly that. After relinquishing his titles on Friday and his honours, the King would have hoped that this nightmare would go away, that the headlines would stop. But instead, we've had an entire weekend of splashes on Andrew, including rolling into today, because, of course, as you just mentioned, the Met Police are now actively looking into claims that he tried to smear his late accuser, Virginia Giuffre, and that's his taxpayer police bodyguard that he would have asked, allegedly, to look into her. So it just gets more and more shocking, doesn't it? And for the King, this is a nightmare because he's about to have an historic visit to the Holy See this week, which he wanted all focus to be on. It's the first time that a British monarch and pontiff will pray together in the Sistine Chapel since the Reformation. It's a once-in-a-500-year event, and yet all the headlines are still about errant Andrew.
Yeah, it's extraordinary what's going to happen later this week when the head of the Church of England and the head of the Catholic Church meet and pray together. But as you say, it's going to be overshadowed by this because the book is to be published this week. So the question then is, India, you know, they've waited until this weekend for this to happen. You know, there are calls for them to go further. Those calls will remain, that they haven't quite done enough to try and squash this story entirely.
Oh, absolutely, yes. There are so many people that have said this is too little, too late. Also, the point that it doesn't officially remove his title and doesn't change any of his constitutional duties or his position in the line of succession. So is this really a PR campaign that's sort of worked? You know, obviously people think that his titles have been effectively stripped, but actually to do so, you would have to go through an Act of Parliament. And the royal family are keen, obviously, not to waste MPs' time and precious parliamentary time on this. And, you know, they're arguing that effectively relinquishing the titles is the same thing. But does it go far enough? And as you say, we're about to have a week where Giuffre's posthumous memoir is going to be published tomorrow. The Chinese spy scandal shows no sign of abating. Many more details are expected to drop from the Epstein files. You know, leaked emails keep coming every week. So will this stop? Probably not.
What's your sense of within the family? We're seeing them there at the recent funeral. The reporting suggests that the King obviously had something to do with all of this, but also Prince William as well. I guess it goes back to that point that they haven't quite gone far enough. What's your sense of the discussions and what perhaps Prince William is now thinking may need to happen?
Right, well, that's a good point, because obviously we know that this past week there were fraught negotiations between the King and Andrew, but behind the scenes is always the Prince of Wales, the future king, lobbying his father to take more decisive and firmer action against his younger brother, so against the King's younger brother. So it's sort of, you know, the case that William knows the reputational risk to the family. He wants to take a tougher stance and a harder line than his father does, and actually reports this weekend said that he would no longer allow Andrew to be in any sort of royal public event, including his coronation. So that was a pretty big move, but we definitely know behind the scenes he is pushing the boat to say.
What do we know about what might happen to the royal lodgings that Prince Andrew?
Yes, so Royal Lodge remains one of the issues to contend with. So he has a sort of watertight personal lease with the Crown Estate, and that lasts until 2078. So if he can pay the upkeep, which he has been able to so far, as per the terms of the lease agreement, he can't be kicked out. And, you know, we know the King has tried, but he's sort of standing firm in his position.
And he's tried to remove him. I spoke to Andrew Langley about this yesterday, and he said that, you know, that the lease is tight, and he can seemingly pay for the upkeep. And there might be questions about where the money is coming from at this stage, because obviously he's not getting his allowance from his brother anymore. But is the King really powerless to do that? I mean, you would imagine that the monarch has the ability to do what he wants to.
I mean, you would imagine that, but it is the lease that Andrew holds personally with the Crown Estate. So, you know, the King can do all he can in trying to convince his younger brother, and of course we should make the point that it's family and that's difficult to deal with. But the optics aren't good for him to remain in Royal Lodge, you know, particularly when the scandal keeps developing like this.
Just to be clear what Royal Lodge is, it's not like it's a little tiny little cottage, it's a big old mansion.
Substantial.
It's a 30-room estate sort of house on Windsor Estate. So it is very substantial, and it doesn't look great, but so long as he can keep the funds and keep the rent, which no one knows where the money is coming from, then not much can be done.
So what do we think about moving forward? What the public perception is one thing, but it's things like Christmas at Sandringham and royal walks outside the church. What will that look like, do we think, for Prince Andrew?
I think for now that's what he's lost, and I think under William's reign, that's absolutely not going to. Andrew's not going to be included in any of that. Which will be a huge blow to both Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, his former wife, because, you know, we know that they were sort of gently, at least Sarah was gently being sort of reintroduced into the royal fold in the last few years. So that will have been axed.
And we won't see her popping up again now, do you think? She's lost her title.
I doubt it.
OK, well, let's talk about the girls then, who are still princesses. Speaking to Alistair Bruce yesterday, the princess title is a styling, I'm told. It's not a title, right? So they won't lose that. That's through their birthright. It's not something
it's their birthright. They won't lose that. They won't lose that. And actually also William will probably keep them as he does. They occasionally come in, they fill in for certain roles or certain engagements. The princesses will probably still do that. And he is close to them. And of course, it's their parents. They didn't do anything, you know, so it wouldn't maybe be fair to strip them of anything, I think.
It's such a mess at the moment, but thank you very much for explaining as much as you can, India. And of course, as we say, more revelations are likely to come this week when that book is officially published. Thank you very much for now.
Yeah, thanks, India. Still to come on Breakfast after a short break. We're going to go inside China's booming microdrama industry, Kamali, because it's this sort of short TV dramas and they're targeting the TikTok generation.
They certainly are. I know that you have a favourite microdrama, right?
Wow, it's very long. It's Neighbours, 40 years in the making.
So the best one.
Love it.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes.
I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor.
The reality of life under Russian fire.
People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming. I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war.
Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment.
We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful. With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO.
This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO. But should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans.
The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
China's film industry is being shaken up by a new form of online video content, and it's known as microdramas. The 2-minute fast-paced episodes are designed to be watched on the go on mobile phones, and every episode of your favourite drama at your fingertips. It's reinventing the soap opera as we know it and could become a cultural coup for China. Sky's Asia correspondent Helen Smith has this report.
An armed heist, a jewellery haul, and a film set with a difference. What they're shooting here is as sensational as it is melodramatic. A microdrama shot in vertical to target a TikTok generation. It might look a bit basic, but these productions are booming. A Chinese cultural sensation. This is what they look like to the viewer. Mini episodes of about a minute, autoplay to suck you in. Fast-paced, low-cost, and hundreds of millions of views. Ji Dingdong is a producer who used to work in traditional film, but he says this is the future, an innovation to match the age.
When you watch verticals, you can easily binge 5 or 6 episodes on the subway, right? And let's face it, you're barely halfway through a normal TV episode before you reach your stop. So with everyone's busy lives and work pressures, scrolling through verticals at a fast pace is actually pretty stress-relieving.
These productions can be shot in less than a week, a highly lucrative format, and there is no doubt it is landing.
The numbers behind this industry are absolutely extraordinary. In just a couple of years, we're talking about revenues surpassing the entirety of the Chinese box office. And the government here has said that over 50% of all internet users in this vast country are consuming dramas like this. But with huge reach and huge revenue comes challenge and opportunity for a system where everything, including cultural products, are strictly controlled.
And there are hints of that here. This place was once a COVID quarantine facility, transformed with government approval. It now houses 200 different sets.
Oh, wow, a courtroom.
From a courthouse to the metro.
There we go, and it moves.
From an operating theatre to an aeroplane.
It's exactly the music that Air China uses.
Yes.
Right.
They made 500 productions last year. And from the private jet, the boss acknowledges the industry does have political value.
The early phase emphasised growth, with the government taking a relatively relaxed but not lax approach. Now, the focus has shifted towards premium production, cultural exports and telling compelling Chinese stories. This aligns with the nation's overarching strategic vision. That's the current landscape.
Indeed, critics say they are perfect propaganda. This year, a huge boom in patriotic war productions, a mass removal of films deemed inappropriate. And there is now heavy focus on exporting this format abroad.
You're still here?
Yeah. Oh man, and that's you.
And that's me. I'm playing the drunk friend who sort of ruins his chance, you know.
Getting in the way of the romance.
Getting in the way of the romance.
Max is an American actor living in Beijing. The demand for English language versions exploding.
So in the past 10 months, right after the Chinese New Year, there was definitely a huge uptick. A bunch of productions decided that they were going to shoot, they were going to produce one a week. Obviously, with money, with eyeballs, with attention comes a degree of power.
The question is how much soft power this industry generates and how exactly China could use it. It may not be the death of old school TV, but it is a remarkable Chinese success story and one just at the start of its life. Helen Smith, Sky News in Chuzhou, southeast China.
Let's just bring you some breaking news we've got coming into us from Gaza. We've been keeping a close eye on whether or not that ceasefire is holding. Donald Trump overnight said it was. In the last few minutes, the IDF have reported that there has been fire from the IDF towards who they describe as several terrorists who crossed the yellow line. That's the line that the IDF put in place for the Israeli Defense Force troops to retreat to as part of the ceasefire agreement. The IDF in the statement say the troops fired towards the terrorists, their words, who crossed the yellow line in order to remove the threats to them. A short while later, the IDF identified an additional number of people who crossed the yellow line and approached IDF troops posing an immediate threat. The IDF fired towards them, who crossed the yellow line to remove them. The IDF will continue, they say, to remove any immediate threat. It's not clear from this IDF statement whether or not the individuals that they shot at have been killed. But Lee, you've got something else from
well, the Gaza government media office are releasing this. They say the Israeli occupation has committed 80 violations since the ceasefire decision on Gaza. Those violations vary from crimes of direct shooting at citizens, crimes of bombing and deliberate targeting. So that's the Gaza government media office updating their side.
Yeah, it just would appear as if that this ceasefire that has been holding in a fragile sense and now been tested over the weekend is going to be tested again today. Of course, we're going to keep a real close eye on the situation in Gaza, and we'll be back, both of us, with your day's headlines after this short break.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Hello and good morning. It is 9 a.m. and on today's programme. In the last few minutes, the IDF says it's fired on two groups that cross the withdrawal line.
Plus, we'll get the very latest for you from the weekend of football with the Standard's Dom Slade.
It is Monday, the 20th of October. The Israeli military says it's fired on what they call terrorists who approached the Yellow Line in southern Gaza today. It follows a weekend that saw the ceasefire face its first major test. President Trump says that peace is holding. Also ahead, we hear from the grieving families who welcome an independent investigation into maternity and neonatal services at an NHS Trust in Leeds. And an international effort is underway to apprehend the gang that stole 8 priceless artefacts from the Louvre in a daring daytime heist yesterday. And the government says it agrees with the royal family's decision to remove Prince Andrew's titles. Well, we're going to begin this hour with some breaking news, and the Israeli military says it's opened fire on 2 groups of militants that it says crossed the withdrawal line in Gaza this morning. Let's go straight to the region, bring in Sally Lockwood, who is joining us from Jerusalem. Sally, bring us up to date with what we know is being reported to have happened just now.
Yeah, we're just hearing reports from the Israeli military that they've opened fire on what they describe as Hamas terrorists that have crossed the so-called yellow line. Now, this is the new demarcation line that the Israeli military have withdrawn to under the agreements of this first phase of the ceasefire, but it is causing a lot of confusion and a lot of danger on the ground. And certainly there have been a number of accusations that there have been incursions and violations of that yellow line since the ceasefire began, and it is resulting in fighting, which we saw really escalate yesterday when there was an exchange of fire in the south of Gaza around Rafah between Israeli forces and Hamas fighters. Now, Israeli forces said that they responded because they were fired upon, and we understood later that 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in that exchange of fire. But it certainly reignited fighting and Israeli airstrikes across the Gaza Strip yesterday, resulting in at least 36 deaths of Palestinians, including children. And for a time, there was a lot of concern that this ceasefire was going to collapse altogether. Israel announced that they were cutting aid going into Gaza in response to what happened yesterday. Hamas were seeking to distance themselves from this military action in the south of Gaza, saying that they hadn't had contact with Hamas fighters in the south since March, and they said that they remained committed to the ceasefire deal. Now, as things stand this morning, both sides say the ceasefire is still on, but certainly it feels one strike, one shot away from collapsing altogether. And I think something that is very interesting indeed is the noises that we're hearing coming out of the United States. We understand from Israeli media that humanitarian aid will resume into Gaza today due to American pressure. And certainly if you listen to what Donald Trump said overnight on Air Force One, he's keeping a very close eye on things indeed.
We're going to have to see what's happening. We want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas. And as you know, they've been quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in that. You know, some rebels within. But either way, it's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Well, so that's the American president's view as he's travelling back on Air Force One, and his delegates are going to be in the region, aren't they, in the next few hours to try and make sure that that ceasefire does hold.
Well, that is what I'm hearing, Kamali. I spoke to a US diplomatic source this morning who said that Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and envoy, Steve Witkoff, will be arriving in Israel today. And this source told me that the main issue and the main reason for their visit is in light of events in Gaza yesterday, seeing that exchange of fire and the fighting erupt once again. And the source said to me that the message to both sides essentially will be, get your beep together. The ceasefire just took hold. Let's get towards the next phase. Otherwise, it's going to fizzle. I've also been told that the US Vice President J.D. Vance is expected to also visit tomorrow. Now, his visit has been rumoured for a number of days, and it was intended to be discussing the next phase of the ceasefire deal, which remains extremely unclear regarding the disarmament of Hamas and who is going to govern Gaza in this next phase. I've spoken with UN officials who are involved in the talks about what's going to happen, and they say they still have no idea how this is all going to work. But it seems that this visit by JD Vance, instead of being primarily focused on this next phase of the ceasefire deal, will be very much working on keeping it together and ensuring that fighting doesn't erupt into full-scale war once again, because that is the concern this morning.
Absolutely is. All right, Sally, for now, in Jerusalem, thank you for that. More from you and team, of course, throughout the day here. Now, the Gaza government media office have put out some detail about their sense of what's happening in the Gaza Strip at the moment, saying that Israel, the Israeli occupation, as they describe it, has committed 80 violations since the ceasefire came into effect. 97 people have been killed, 230 have been injured. They say there were 21 violations on Sunday. They say that they hold these violations, the Israelis fully responsible for these violations, and call on the UN to be a guarantor to stop these violations continuing. As Sally was pointing out there, the delegation of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are likely to be in the region today to try and ensure that this ceasefire holds, but it seems to be holding by a thread at the moment as the violence in Gaza continues. Of course, we'll keep a close eye across that for the rest of the day here on Sky News.
But next, grieving families have welcomed the launch of an independent investigation into maternity and neonatal services at an NHS Trust. The parents of babies at Leeds teaching hospitals say they felt gaslit, dismissed and then even blamed for when things went wrong. Our North of England correspondent Katerina Vitozzi reports.
They are parents who say warnings were missed, voices ignored, and as a result, the lives of their children lost.
This shouldn't have happened. Well, they tell us it shouldn't have happened, but there's nothing about what's being done to make sure it doesn't happen again.
All these families used Leeds Teaching Hospital's maternity services. Their babies were stillborn or died shortly after birth. Amarjit Mataru was left in a coma. Internal reviews found different care may have meant their children could still be alive. For Fiona and Dan, a coroner ruled their little girl, Aliona, died as a result of neglect from medical staff.
After our daughter died, we were told that they'd never seen anything like it before, and we believed it initially. We believed that we were the first people, the only people that this had ever happened to. And in the depths of our despair and grief, we needed to find other people that understood us, that were the same as us.
Now, after years of campaigning, bereaved families in Leeds, of which dozens have been identified, have finally got what they've been demanding: a fully independent inquiry into Leeds' maternity services.
It's been a long time coming. We have, as a group of families, spent years trying to essentially expose what the problems have been at Leeds that we've known have existed all along.
We shouldn't, as bereaved, grieving parents, had to do this for so many years, and he's now taking that responsibility, which is quite a relief to know that, you know, we don't have to keep fighting.
The Health Secretary's announcement of the independent investigation into the maternity services here comes not only after that relentless campaigning by bereaved families, but also after a series of damning reports, with inspectors finding that the care here left pregnant people and babies at significant risk. And today, the head of the trust said sorry.
I want to start by offering the families an unreserved apology, not only for their experience, but also for the fight that they've had in raising these concerns. And I want to assure them of our commitment to engage with the independent inquiry openly, honestly and transparently.
Leeds now joins a growing list. Morecambe Bay, Shrewsbury, East Kent and the ongoing Nottingham inquiry, all uncovering shocking failures in maternity care across England. Katerina Vitozzi, Sky News, Leeds.
Here is a story that you are keeping a very close eye on. The manhunt continues.
I know. It's all over the papers, isn't it?
Incredible heist at the Louvre in Paris. 8 objects were taken. They actually broke an object on the way out.
Yeah, they dropped a
crown, didn't they, that smashed as the robbers broke in broad daylight in the space of just 4 minutes. Our Europe correspondent Siobhan Robbins has this.
Brazen and in broad daylight, the thief in a hood and high-vis, part of a team carrying out an audacious heist at the Louvre. The robber is breaking into cabinets containing priceless jewels in video broadcast by our partners, BFM TV. In a matter of minutes, treasures worth an incalculable amount had been swiped from one of the most famous museums in the world as confused visitors were ushered out by frantic security.
Then we walked out of the room of the Mona Lisa. We went to the left in the direction of the French crown jewels. And there were security people, and they shouted to us, you have to move this place. You have to be quick, fast, run.
This is how the thieves got in. Shortly after the museum opened, they used a motorised ladder to get to the first floor, where they cut the glass and headed for the Apollo Gallery. A display housing treasures from Napoleon and French sovereigns. They smashed cabinets and gathered their swag before fleeing on scooters.
It must be said that these are professionals. Organised crime today targets art objects. And museums have obviously become targets because France, as you know, is a country with a rich heritage, a country with historical heritage objects of great value. And so these museums have also become targets for these criminals.
And this is what they made off with. 8 items, including a tiara, necklace and earrings belonging to a queen, and an empress's emerald earrings and necklace. But this tiara, owned by Empress Eugenie, was found dropped outside.
I think it's the theft of the decade, you know, targeting the Louvre, the world's most famous museum, and stealing the crown jewels from Napoleon. It's like the movies, you know. We have seen similar heists, but targeting the Louvre is next level. And it's a big scandal now in France, of course, losing the crown jewels. It's a big thing.
The French president has called the raid an attack on our heritage, as forensic teams worked to track down the masterminds.
You have to see it to believe it. A heist straight out of a Hollywood script on this busy tourist street. Just how did they get away with it?
A European manhunt is underway, but French authorities know time is against them. The gang could be trying to cross the border or melting down their loot as we speak.
Well, I'm pleased to say Siobhan joins us now from outside the Louvre. Great to have you with us again, Siobhan, because there's been a change of plan, isn't there, in terms of the Louvre being open?
Yes, that's right. We thought that the Louvre would be open today, apart from the area that had been affected by the robbery, but that seems to have changed. You can see there are still people milling around because they've got the word now that the Louvre will remain closed for today. And that is as investigations continue and a Europe-wide manhunt has been launched to try and find the gang behind this robbery. But so many people across France are absolutely stunned and outraged by what has happened here. The Justice Minister spoke to French media today and said that this has had a negative impact on France's reputation because, of course, they have so many museums carrying so many high-value artefacts. So I guess the big question is, what happens now? The last that we were told by the authorities is that this gang got away on scooters or motorbikes heading towards the A6 motorway. Who could have done this? Well, the prosecutor has spoken to French media and suggested 2 possibilities. Either organised criminals who are using this to fund further criminal activity, or a gang who are stealing these items to order. But an art detective has told Sky News the French authorities are really up against it. He reckoned they had about a week to try and track this gang down before the jewels were either moved on or melted down.
All right, Siobhan, for now, thank you for that, Siobhan Romsau, Europe correspondent, keeping across that extraordinary heist at the Louvre. Thank you, Siobhan. All right, some more breaking news to bring you, and Leo is checking her phone because it would appear as if major internet services are down. Amazon, at least, is down. Snapchat down, as well as Robinhood. The Amazon Web Services have said recently that we can confirm an increased error rate and latencies for multiple AWS services in the US East 1 region. Of course, Amazon Web Services, which is the provider for many companies, back-end web service is down and having some difficulty in the US East 1 region at least. I'm not sure whether it's affecting the rest of the world yet, but I'm sure it will do because there are many apps that are affected by this. I mean, Roblox, Ring, apparently as well. Snapchat too.
Yeah. So many.
So a huge outage at the moment. No sign yet as to the cause of it. I mean, Fortnite is down, if anyone's gaming at the moment as well. According to Down Detector, there are 2,000 reports of the Amazon Web Services outage in just the US, as you say. Not sure yet whether it will be global, but I can imagine it probably will be.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, but do head over to the Sky News app. It's got the very latest. So we'll park that for now, but let me take you through some of the day's other headlines. And this is all to do with a flight landing in Hong Kong. 2 people died. It was after a cargo plane basically skidded off a runway in Hong Kong. It fell into the sea. Authorities are saying that the Boeing 747 was arriving from Dubai and then it crashed through the airport fencing as it landed. 4 crew members were rescued. Now, troops will soon be allowed to shoot down drones that threaten military bases. In a speech later today, Defence Secretary John Healey will say that the UK is stepping up its defences in the face of new types of threats. It comes after several European countries saw their airspace violated in recent weeks. A group of bereaved families has written to the Prime Minister calling for an inquiry into websites that promote suicide. They say there's been multiple missed opportunities to shut down online forums that engage people to take their own lives. And then the government's announced a new set of qualifications for students aged 16 to 19. They'll be known as V-levels. They're due to replace the 900 vocational qualifications currently available to pupils and can also be sat alongside A-levels. Well, the Education Secretary says they will be tied to rigorous and real-world job standards.
Well, the news keeps coming this morning. 4 Reform councillors have been suspended by the party. It's just been announced in the past few minutes. Reform UK have said in a statement the councillors Paul Thomas, Oliver Bradshaw, Bill Barrett and Maxine Fothergill have had the whip suspended pending investigation following evidence that they brought the party into disrepute. These are councillors in Kent. Over the weekend, the Guardian newspaper published video showing fractions within the councillors, and now those councillors have had the whip suspended while there is an investigation into what they have done following the evidence that they may have brought the party into disrepute. Luckily, we've got our political correspondent Amanda Akas here with us. Amanda, look, these are just 4 councillors, of course, from a council in Kent, but of course, Reform have been putting on councillors. They run a couple of councils as well, so this will be challenging for the leadership of the party to try and deal with.
I think this is always going to be the big challenge for Reform, obviously seeing that huge success that they had at the last local elections. When those new councillors were put to the test, how would they actually fare given the challenges of local government, given the lack of funding that there is for local government, given that they promised their voters that they were going to find millions of pounds of savings and they were going to cut everyone's council tax. Now, clearly what's happened in Kent, there was a bit of controversy about the fact that a few weeks ago they announced that actually they were probably going to have to put council tax up because it turns out it wasn't so easy to find the savings that they thought they would be able to find after many years of a previous Tory administration. Kent is the biggest unitary sort of county council authority in the country, so it's huge budgets that we're talking about here. But this specific announcement follows a rather extraordinary video that was leaked to The Guardian, basically a Zoom meeting, and it actually is quite reminiscent, if you remember that parish council story about, you know, you've got I don't remember, you've got the technical details, Jackie Weaver and all of that that we had back in the time. And basically there was a lot of swearing, there was a lot of backbiting, a lot of complaints about the leader, and the whole thing looked very chaotic and unprofessional. And so the council leader basically said she was going to launch an investigation into the cowards who leaked this video. Of course, we don't know the exact circumstances, but now these 4 councillors have been suspended. So clearly there's a whole set of circumstances going along at Kent that are quite quite specific. But yeah, it's not a great look for a party whose biggest challenge, given the huge surge in popularity in the polls, is to demonstrate that actually when given power, that they have the kind of experience and responsibility and professionalism to deal with it. And clearly it's not quite as easy to run a big organisation like Kent County Council as perhaps they thought.
Surprise. That is all right. Amanda, stay there with us for now, because of course we got this story about Prince Andrew that we've been following all weekend, actually.
Yeah, more allegations levelled at Prince Andrew that will be investigated by the Metropolitan Police this time.
Yes, indeed. So this is about claims that he had asked a member of staff to look into Virginia Giuffre, basically, who had made those sexual assault allegations about him, following other allegations that, although he told Emily Maitlis that he'd seized all contact with Jeffrey Epstein, it turns out that emails allegedly suggesting that he had continued contact later. And so clearly we know on Friday that he renounced his title as Duke of York and a whole series of other honours that had been bestowed on him in discussion with the royal family, of course. But that's really led to a kind of a campaign from many MPs and others who are really saying, well, actually, shouldn't the authorities, shouldn't the royal family, shouldn't Parliament be going further and actually strip him of all of his titles formally? Because what's quite interesting about this, although he's given up the title of Duke of York, he still actually has that dukedom.
They're in abeyance as well, like he's put them aside.
Yes, exactly. So earlier we were speaking to Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, about this, and she said it's right that the royal family have taken the steps that they have. Let's have a listen.
We agree and support the decision that the royal family and Prince Andrew have taken and the recent announcement that they've made. I don't think the royal family would want to detract from wider parliamentary business that's currently ongoing.
Parliamentarians have a
Of course, Parliament always has. There are always routes for parliamentarians to put forward debates, to find time for debates, if that's what backbench MPs would wish to do. But I think we've seen the right course of action in terms of what the royal family have done so far. But the title of Prince is a title that's held by virtue of being the son of a monarch.
Look, Bridget Phillipson there's sort of leaving it open that backbenchers can put things forward. We also heard the same from the Tories and the Lib Dems as well. All parliamentarians seem to be kind of pushing in the same direction, but whether or not time is going to be given over to this, is that still an open question?
Yes, I mean, I think what we had clearly from Bridget Phillipson is that the government is not going to be putting forward legislation to enable them to strip Prince Andrew of his titles, but she seemed to be suggesting, I mean, she was the one that suggested it, not you there, that actually backbenchers, if they wanted to, you know, they'd be open to looking at that kind of discussion being led from backbench MPs as can happen. And actually, Rachel Maskell, who's the MP for York, so, you know, clearly feels quite relevant to this story. She was a Labour MP. She's lost the whip over the welfare rebellion, but she previously tried to bring through a private member's bill, which would see the government getting the power to strip people of peerages. That didn't go ahead at the time. It was based on legislation from 1917, which is really interesting. So that was from after the First World War, when they wanted to strip peers who fought for the Germans of their titles. But similarly worded. Now she's saying, well, she wants to bring that back again. Stephen Flynn of the SNP also supporting that and saying that the government should have the power to strip peerage of Peter Mandelson as well. So a whole series of issues here. I don't think clearly it's something the government want to give parliamentary time to, but none of the major parties really saying they're against the idea in theory.
And it's interesting as well, isn't it? 'Cause aren't there rules around not criticising the monarch in Parliament? But if you have a parliamentary debate, of course, parliamentary privilege gives MPs the right to say whatever they like in the House.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? So they are allowed to talk about the royal family's finances, but they're not allowed to sort of cast reflections on the royal family. So they are quite restricted in what they can say. And actually one Labour peer, George Fuchs, has actually written, I think, saying to the Prime Minister, saying that that's something that should be looked at because Parliament should be able to debate everything freely. I mean, clearly, I think from the government's perspective, they don't want to look like they're intruding on a royal family situation. They want to be respectful, but clearly, as the story around Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein, all these additional emails that we're seeing coming out, as the story keeps on developing, we keep seeing these headlines, both the royal family and the government are going to come under more pressure on this.
Yeah, they most certainly are. And it's going to continue on this week, isn't it? Because Virginia Giuffre's book is being published
tomorrow.
Right. Right, Amanda, for now, thank you so much for that. All right, something quite different.
Yeah, we're going to move on to the Chinese film industry now.
Yes.
It's really been shaken up, and it's in the form of online video content too, and it's known as microdrama.
Yes, 2 minutes, vertical video, fast-paced episodes to watch on your phone. Every episode of your favourite drama at your fingertips. You've got big ideas for Neighbours, your favourite
Yeah,
drama,
Neighbours could potentially win from this. But this is happening in China, not here. And it's reinventing the soap opera as we know it. And it could become a cultural coup for China. Sky's Asia correspondent Helen Smith has this report.
An armed heist, a jewellery haul, and a film set with a difference. What they're shooting here is as sensational as it is melodramatic. A microdrama shot in vertical to target a TikTok generation. It might look a bit basic, but these productions are booming. A Chinese cultural sensation. This is what they look like to the viewer. Mini episodes of about a minute, autoplay to suck you in. Fast-paced, low cost, and hundreds of millions of views. Ji Dingdong is a producer who used to work in traditional film, but he says this is the future, an innovation to match the age.
When you watch verticals, you can easily binge 5 or 6 episodes on the subway, right? And let's face it, you're barely halfway through a normal TV episode before you reach your stop. So with everyone's busy lives and work pressures, scrolling through verticals at a fast pace is actually pretty stress relieving.
These productions can be shot in less than a week, a highly lucrative format, and there is no doubt it is landing.
The numbers behind this industry are absolutely extraordinary. In just a couple of years, we're talking about revenues surpassing the entirety of the Chinese box office. And the government here has said that over 50% of all internet users in this vast country are consuming dramas like this. But with huge reach and huge revenue comes challenge and opportunity for a system where everything, including cultural products, are strictly controlled.
And there are hints of that here. This place was once a COVID quarantine facility, transformed with government approval. It now houses 200 different sets.
Oh, wow, a courtroom.
From a courthouse to the metro.
There we go, and it moves.
From an operating theatre to an aeroplane.
It's exactly the music that Air China uses.
Yes.
Right.
They made 500 productions last year. And from the private jet, the boss acknowledges the industry does have political value.
The early phase emphasised growth, with the government taking a relatively relaxed but not lax approach. Now, the focus has shifted towards premium production, cultural exports and telling compelling Chinese stories. This aligns with the nation's overarching strategic vision. That's the current landscape.
Indeed, critics say they are perfect propaganda. This year, a huge boom in patriotic war productions. A mass removal of films deemed inappropriate. And there is now heavy focus on exporting this format abroad.
You're still here?
Yeah.
Oh man, and that's you.
And that's me. I'm playing the drunk friend who sort of ruins his chance, you know.
Getting in the way of the romance.
Getting in the way of the romance.
Max is an American actor living in Beijing. The demand for English language versions exploding.
So in the past 10 months, right after the Chinese New Year, there was definitely a huge uptick. A bunch of productions decided that they were going to shoot, they were going to produce one a week. Obviously, with money, with eyeballs, with attention comes a degree of power.
The question is how much soft power this industry generates and how exactly China could use it. It may not be the death of old school TV, but it is a remarkable Chinese success story and one just at the start of its life. Helen Smith, Sky News in Chuzhou, southeast China.
All right, we're going to take you through the weather forecast for the next few days. And it's going to be unsettled with widespread showers and more rain at times. Many southern parts showery now with thundery downpours possible, although the west of Ireland will dry up later. The north will be mainly dry with fog in places, but the far northeast looks wet. It's breezy in the south, windy near Channel and northeastern coasts. The rest of the morning will bring little change in the weather, although fog in the north will slowly lift while any rain over mainland Scotland should clear. Expect further thundery showers across the south, heaviest over southern England. Well, England and Wales will see more rain during the afternoon, although the rain will ease in the west, while Scotland will stay mostly fine. Ireland and Northern Ireland will see showers returning to the west while fading in the east. More rain overnight, but eastern Britain will turn mainly dry. Showers in the west will spread east again tomorrow, while Wednesday will bring more rain to the northwest, more general rain to the south. I don't know if you got that forecast there, Leah, but it's going to be rainy.
I know, I've got the heating on, so I'm
You have?
prepared.
Brolly, waterproofs. You ready for it? It's going to be like this until May now.
Well, that's not good. But what is good is that we do have more content after the break, and we're going to be talking about this game-changing alternative for those suffering life-threatening allergies. We're going to tell you all the details coming up next. Stay with us.
People want intelligent leaders, but it can be done in a less buttoned-up way.
Have a conversation in the same way that people do at home. Sophie is the best in the business.
If politicians are not answering the question, I'm not going to let them get away with that. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous. And there is nobody better to cut through the noise than Wilf.
You did say there wouldn't be further tax hikes. You can no longer make that promise. Mornings with Ridge and Frost. I literally can't wait to get going.
Play it cool, Wilf. Play it cool.
Hello there and welcome back to The Breakfast programme. Coming up, major change for people living with life-threatening allergies. But first, Leah, you got the headlines?
I do indeed. Our top stories this morning. The Israeli military says it's opened fire on two groups of militants that it say crossed the withdrawal line in southern Gaza this morning. The IDF said troops fired at them in order to remove the threat. Donald Trump, meantime, has insisted the Gaza ceasefire is still in effect. The truce faced a major test this weekend after an attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers sparked a wave of airstrikes that killed at least 36 Palestinians. Also today, an investigation into maternity services at an NHS Trust in Leeds has been welcomed by bereaved families. The government has launched an inquiry into Leeds teaching hospitals after parents reported being dismissed and then even blamed for when things went wrong. And the manhunt continues for a gang who stole 8 pieces of priceless jewellery from the world-famous Louvre in Paris. Police say they broke in through a window and are believed to have fled on motorbikes.
Now, for the first time, people living with life-threatening allergies will have access to a needle-free alternative to traditional EpiPens. It's hoped a new pocket-sized nasal spray will be easy to use and help people act faster in anaphylaxis emergencies. Well, we're joined now by the paediatric allergy specialist, Professor George Dutoit, as well as Phoebe Stott, who is allergic to nuts. We'll find out which nuts soon. And Phoebe's mum, Hannah, who we should say does work here at Sky News, so it's nice to see a colleague. Hello to you, Hannah. Let's start with you, Professor, if we can. Why is there a need to get away from the traditional EpiPen?
So adrenaline is the drug of choice for moderate and severe allergic reactions, often called anaphylaxis. We know adrenaline works. It's long been on the market. It comes in 2 injectable intramuscular devices. There are 2 on the market at present. They are this size, fairly simple in theory to administer. So you would take a cap off which activates it onto the middle of the thigh. This would be applied. This is a trainer pen, and a needle would squirt a dose of adrenaline into the thigh. We've had experience with this device for over 2 decades, and it works very well in the acute setting, as I'm sure Phoebe will explain to you. So a smaller device would be welcome, and a non-injectable route would be very welcome. So the drug is the same in this device. It remains adrenaline, a very simple administration device. You would simply hold it on the sides, place it into your nostril, aiming at your forehead, and administer a single dose of adrenaline.
Right.
And we know from studies you rapidly absorb the adrenaline from the nasal route.
Interesting. I'll come on to talk to you about the drug that's used, but Phoebe, let me get your story. Tell us what you're allergic to and any experiences you've had of anaphylaxis.
So I'm allergic to all tree nuts, so that's no peanuts, I'm fine with peanuts, but hazelnuts, walnuts, cashews, macadamias, those sorts of nuts. And I was prescribed my EpiPen when I was 12, but I developed my allergy when I was 5. And I've only had to use it once, thankfully, but it was in 2021 when I was on holiday with my mum in Paris, and I took the tiniest bite of a little cake that we had asked, does it have nuts in both English and French, which we were told it doesn't, so thinking it was safe, I had a tiny bite. I knew immediately it had nuts in, so I took an antihistamine, which up until that point had always been fine. I could be ill afterwards, but the allergic reaction would stop. But things just weren't really right after that as well. So we were walking and I just felt completely exhausted. So I had to sit down and I let my mum continue going into shops because we just thought maybe I was tired anyway from the trip. But when I was sitting there, I had what I can only really describe as this sense of impending doom come over me.
You sensed it, you knew?
Yeah.
Of course, your body was telling you.
Yeah, exactly. So my brain was just telling me, you know, that I was going to die, and so I realised that I probably shouldn't be alone, so I ended up calling my mum.
Yeah. Terrifying.
It was terrifying. I left her looking perfectly normal, went on my shopping way, and when I got back she was bright red, swollen, hives, she was clearing her throat. Phoebe thought to say, we need to get to a pharmacy. She pretty much directed the whole thing, to be honest. We got to a pharmacy. They weren't a great help, but Phoebe went downhill, stopped being able to see, and at that point, finally, again, I think Phoebe said, we need to use the EpiPen. That was the first time, and the first time you use it, it's terrifying as a mother. And it feels like a really big deal the first time you use it. And if I had my time again, I would have used it 10 minutes earlier, but I was scrabbling around with it. I couldn't really remember how to use it. And eventually, I did. Well, it probably was seconds, but it felt like a long time.
Yeah.
And then used it, and she couldn't feel it go in, didn't feel like it had done anything, still feeling this panic. And then she suddenly said, "Oh my God, I feel amazing." And
that's the issue, isn't it, Dr. George? Actually, the nervous nature of using sometimes the EpiPen for parents, for those involved too. So this nasal spray, if you call it that, how will it help? How will it change the situation?
Well, the drug is the same, so the fear around adrenaline will still exist. So you have to acknowledge and recognise an allergic reaction is occurring, that it's of a severe nature, which can be difficult to do when you're the parent or when it's you yourself. Obviously, in Phoebe's case, this was extreme, and there was only one drug when symptoms had developed, and that's adrenaline. Once you've acknowledged that that's occurred, you need to administer adrenaline. And like I said, there are only two routes. The one is intramuscular with one of these auto-injectors or self-injectable devices. And now it's really reassuring that we have the first of the non-injectable administration devices. Many other drugs are given through this device. The first dose, I need to stress, is 2 milligrams, and you need to be 30 kilograms of body weight or above. So children around 9, 10 years of age will reach that. So most of young children in the UK will still need to use adrenaline auto-injectors. And we need to discuss with patients, carers, teachers, nurses, which device we wish to use.
500 productions last year.
Sorry, that's our speaker down here that's decided to turn itself on. I can turn it off with my foot. Or ask the gallery to do it. There we go. Sorry about that. Interrupting us in the middle of a conversation. I had a couple of questions for you, actually.
Yeah.
As a nut allergy sufferer, I have a peanut allergy, though. Do we know why Phoebe would have, an allergy to tree nuts, right? Well, I have allergy to groundnuts. Why is it that I can eat cashews and pistachios as much as I like?
So nuts contain distinct proteins, and it's a rather clumsy label saying nuts or seeds. They're all a seed of a plant, and they contain seed storage proteins, and you can find them across many different foods. Peanut, often considered a pulse, a legume. A canicle on its own, whereas some nuts are related to each other. For example, cashew and pistachio, walnut and pecan. So there are patterns of nut allergy that develop.
OK. And my other slightly nerdy question as well about the adrenaline. Is it right that the adrenaline just gives you the space to get better treatment? Is that why you have it, right?
So adrenaline is like petrol to the body. It makes your heart beat stronger, faster. It squeezes blood back to your heart, so as a pump it can work more efficiently. Decreases swelling around the airways, which is what Phoebe described, opens up your lungs. So we all have adrenaline. It's a natural hormone. We have adrenal glands, but this is obviously just a larger dose that does wear off. It does. So we find that in about 1 or 10 occasions, no matter which device you use, you may need to administer a second dose. Importantly with this, you squirt in the same nostril, the second dose. With the intramuscular devices, it should be on an alternate thigh. That is very important.
Interesting. Go on.
No, I just wondered how well used this will be, because it's launched today. Who can get access to it? Is it on the NHS?
So you need to be 30 kilograms and above. So for most of the patients I see as a paediatrician, it will not apply. There is hopefully a smaller dose coming at a later stage. But for older children, they could speak to their GP, allowing for some time. This is now in the NHS, but it needs to go through ICB boards to get on the formulary so that your GP can prescribe it. And of course, we need time just for emergency plans to roll out, for teachers, for carers. There's a whole community around food allergic individuals that also need training.
Yeah, and I guess the education as well to everyone to know what to do in the right circumstances. I mean, you carry your EpiPen all the time. I'm so happy you had it with you when you went on holiday. My sister will be very sad to say I've done bits on television. I don't carry mine as much as I should, and we should definitely be carrying our EpiPens at all times, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is something, I'm at university now, and it is something I have to be so careful and cautious with. I'm around people I don't know all the time and who I would have to be not as trusting of to know that they could do an EpiPen in the time of need. So
it is scary, I suppose. And I guess the other thing as well about your story is that you asked in the shop like this, and we hear this often, that people have asked whether or not there is nuts or whatever it is that you're allergic to. I think it's lactose, the last story that I covered about this, and you're told it's not in the product, and yet it turns out that it is.
And when I was in the hospital in Paris, they just see it all the time.
Really?
All the time. I mean, we had Google Translate going. Any French that I have had gone out the window, and they're scientists. They're not necessarily language people. So there was a lot of Google Translate going on, but they said it happens all of the time. They're dealing with it all the time. Yeah.
You've got to be so much more vigilant. But hopefully, with a device like that, you can carry very easily and not forget. I promise I won't forget, Shani. You can have it with you at all times and save your life right for you. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Professor, thank you very much for your time. Very worthwhile discussion. Thank you.
Still to come on Breakfast. We're heading for a short break. We'll be discussing, though, all of the action in the Premier League this weekend.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Slide minutes, slide better. Fly Emirates, fly better.
OK, we're going to talk sports, aren't we?
Football,
and yeah,
specifically.
It was an eventful weekend, to say the least, in the Premier League. There were late goals, big upsets, and a manager.
Yeah, one manager at least losing his job.
Postecoglou at Forest.
He's lost his job at the City Ground after 8 games in charge, not won a single game. I think it's the shortest tenure of a full-time Premier League manager who's there for just 39 days, which is shorter than I think Liz Truss was Prime Minister.
Well,
Poor
yeah.
Ange.
It's interesting, isn't it? At Spurs, he said, look, I come into my own in my second season. He didn't get that chance. So Forest was that lifeline for him in, you know, managerial post. And, you know, lots of speculation online about maybe where he'll go next, but my fear is perhaps it won't be in the Premier League, because I quite enjoy big characters in managerial roles, and I'm thinking Jose Mourinho, you know, great post-match interviews, but for Ange it just didn't.
It didn't work.
I
mean, big characters certainly. Whether or not he'll get another job in the Premier League remains to be seen. He just tried to change things so markedly from the previous manager, from Nuno, from a very sort of a counter-attacking style of football to what he calls Ange ball, which is just open, you don't defend, you just make sure you score more goals than the team you're playing. Unfortunately, that didn't work for him, because the team they were playing kept scoring more goals than Forest. They actually didn't score very many goals as well, which tells you a little bit about their performance. It's another change at the City Ground. There are a couple of new managers who are mentioned, Sean Dyche from a Burnley boss and Everton
Good
boss.
shout, that, actually.
Possibly. There's some disquiet amongst some Forest fans about him. Roberto Mancini also been mentioned as well, former Man City boss, wasn't he, of course, who has come to a high calibre. I think Forest fans will just want to see the right person back at the City Ground, because, of course, the team are in Europe this season. Some big games ahead this week, big games coming up, and they're sitting in the relegation zone. So it's high time there's a decent manager in charge. But your team?
Yeah, so Arsenal against Fulham.
Yes.
1-0. And it's always quite a difficult... I call it a bit of a bogey team, Fulham. Arsenal needing that win, of course. Let's take a look at some of those goals. So I think, a great win for Arsenal there, keeping them in contention. I know it's quite...
Another goal from a corner as well.
Yeah, it's quite early on, but I think if we learn anything from the likes of Liverpool, Man City, the wins stack up. And we need them fast and furious, and that's what's happening there. So that's, for me, that's great, quiet confidence in Mikel Arteta.
I think you're right about that, and then winning 1-0 as well, hard fought, shows the bit of sort of grit in an Arsenal team that I think is going to be needed if they are going to win the Championship.
And that away kit is top of the list for
You're
Enzo,
liking that one,
his birthday.
Your boy for his birthday, that'll be nice. All right, let's bring in Dom Smith from The Standard joining us now to talk a little bit more about the football over the weekend. Dom, thank you so much for being with us. Look, we talked a bit about Forest there and Arsenal. I wonder if you can talk to us a bit about United's game against Liverpool yesterday. Ruben Amorim staying in the job, good performance by United, but questions, I guess, now asked about Arne Slot and Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Liverpool have now lost 4 games in a row, and I think it's quite surprising, to be honest. But at the beginning of the season, they were obviously winning lots of matches, but maybe weren't, I think a lot of people felt, playing the football that they'd been producing last season. Last season, of course, was Arne Slot's first season. They won the Premier League. And I think many people felt that he took the same team that Jurgen Klopp had for years, and they didn't spend very much money, but he maybe managed to play a slightly different style of football. I think this season, the football has stayed broadly the same, but the new signings, the big money that they've spent in the summer, which doesn't seem like it's sort of paying off yet. I mean, they've spent so much money on players like Alexander Isak and Florian Wirtz and Milos Kerkez, and just none of these new signings feel that they've sort of hit the ground running, apart from maybe Hugo Ekitike, the striker, who in a sense is now expected to be second choice to Isak, but Isak's not been finding the goals. And to lose to rivals Man United and to make that 4 defeats in a row, I think just sort of compounds the feeling at the club at the moment. I think Liverpool, as defending champions, are starting to look probably, on top of the league at Arsenal, who are the leaders, and wonder whether they're really going to be struggling in a title race this season.
Yeah, Dom, give us a thought about Mo Salah and his performance. I know there were questions. He was definitely not at his best yesterday, and just about perhaps how good United were.
Yeah, in terms of salary, it's a strange one, isn't it? And I think it's probably all the more, under the microscope in the context of how many goals Erling Haaland has been scoring for Manchester City, because a lot of people see those as the two kind of most expected goals, regular goal scorers in the Premier League. But Mohamed Salah's really had quite a difficult start to the season. And it's not the only time that he's put in a performance where it's obvious he's struggling this season. I was at the match before the international break when Chelsea won in the last few minutes against Liverpool, and Mohamed Salah, received a lot of criticism in that performance as well for how he, was sort of snatching at chances and firing over far over the goal. In terms of Man United, Ruben Amorim, a bit like Ange Postecoglou, has been under real pressure in recent weeks. But two wins now against Sunderland before the international break and against Liverpool, that will have absolutely lifted the mood. And the performances of the goalkeeper as well, Senna Lomans, who they signed this summer, I think has been really impressive. I know it's too early probably to suggest that he's going to be a good goalkeeper for 5 to 10 years, but certainly the early indications are that he's been a really shrewd signing, and Amorim will be delighted because he's been under some serious pressure, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. They were saying he's going to be the new Schmeichel. That remains to be seen. But Dom, we do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, Dom. Now, before we wrap the show, there's a major internet outage and it's affecting dozens of websites. Amelia's here with more. What can you tell us?
This is something that's been unfolding in the last hour, and we'll have more from 10 o'clock. But we understand that there is a widespread internet outage that's affecting some websites, games and apps, and it was started to be reported via the website Down Detector. It's where you and I could list a website as not working properly. A number of websites, including Snapchat, Amazon and the government website gov.uk have been impacted. There are currently over 5,000 reports of users not being able to use Snapchat. Some banks have reported problems, so Lloyds Bank, Halifax and Bank of Scotland, some of their customers are having some issues. Also some issues with HMRC. And the cause at the moment, and as I say, we'll have more in a second, but has been identified as retail giant Amazon's cloud computing service, and this is called Amazon Web Services. And this is on-demand cloud computing services over the internet. They say they're working on fixing this issue.
Right, Amelia, well, as you say, you'll have more on that story at the top of the next hour. That's all from the team here on The Breakfast Show. Amelia will be back with that story and, of course, the rest of the day's news. And join us again tomorrow.
We'll do it again. Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks for being with us.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.